Chapter 354. I have an idea. Our mystic arts are all useless, but I feel that this demonic beast's poison is definitely able to strip away the life force of all living things, and turn it into its own. Zhu Yao analyzed. I believe the way to counter it is to use mystic arts that do not have any life force. Nangong Qing was stunned. He widened his eyes and said, "Are you saying that only the earth and metal elements can hurt it?" Yes. No wonder only fellow Daoist Northstar and fellow Daoist Shiman were able to injure it. Nangong pondered for a moment before realization dawned on his face. The sword formation is a metal-type spell technique. That demonic beast is very agile. Although the sword formation can attack, it can't hold it back for too long. Nangong Huang, how's your earth elemental magic? I already told you my name is Nangong Qing. I'm not proficient in earth-type arts, but... He turned to look at Zhonggu Lu, who had been slacking off. What? The muscular man, Zhonggu Lu, said with a disgusted look. I'm not going over. That demonic beast is so disgusting. What if it accidentally injures my flower-like face when I get close to it? Is this the time to care about my image? Suddenly, that demonic beast once again let out a furious roar. Under the combined attacks of Yu Yan and Yu Ying's sword formation, many wounds had already appeared on its body. As though it had been forced into a corner, this roar was especially violent, and it was filled with pressure. Suddenly, he landed on all fours and changed his posture, but his body began to emit that kind of venom. Not good, it's going to use venom to attack. Nangong Chang's expression changed. It had intentionally released so much venom. If it were to shake its body, the venom would definitely engulf the entire world. Even if it returned to the purifying pond, it wouldn't be able to withstand it. What to do? He couldn't drag it out any longer. He had to end the battle quickly. However, Zhonggu Lu, this boorish man of the Appearance Association, actually dropped the ball at the last moment, not daring to step forward. It's settled then. Team leader Nangong Qing had a serious look on his face as he sent a telepathic message to the two people in front of him. In a while, after the earth-type spell is cast, the four of us will attack together and kill the demonic beast in one blow. I don't want to go. That poisonous gas is no joke. Zhonggu Lu had a determined look. As he said that, he decided to fly in the direction of the purifying pool. I'm so beautiful, I don't want to. Before he could finish his sentence, Nangong Qing had already silently conjured a large water mirror in front of him. In an instant, his face, which had been infected by the poisonous gas, was reflected in the mirror. 2 seconds later, Nangong Qing silently covered his ears. Before Zhu Yao could even understand what he meant, a miserable cry instantly pierced through the sky. Everyone shuddered when they heard it. Ah! My face! From the moment they entered the poisonous fog, the few of them had more or less been infected with some of the poisonous gas. However, he was the one who had been infected the most, and it was directly reflected on his face. Zhonggu Lu's entire being instantly changed, and the divine energy around him instantly exploded out. Zhu Yao could faintly see that the thing called fury was currently burning around his body. He stopped in his tracks and glared fiercely at the demonic beast behind him. You bastard, how dare you hurt my face? His figure suddenly flashed and rushed forward. Suddenly, there were a few rumbling sounds, and earth spikes shot out from the ground, directly nailing the beast's 2 claws. The beast let out a miserable scream. In an instant, the poisonous gas attack earlier was interrupted. However, it was not over yet. Right below it, a fist formed from earth suddenly appeared, instantly smashing the demonic beast onto the ground. In an instant, countless earth spikes and stone pillars shot out from the ground, rumbling as they wildly dug towards the demonic beast. Your grandpa, you dare to hurt my face, you motherfucking dare to hurt my face. This old man has been cultivating for so many years, and there has never been anyone who dared to hurt my face. You bastard, trash. You actually dare to hurt me. Die, die, die. As he fought, he cursed. He used his mystic arts quickly and ruthlessly, and even his hair was standing straight from anger. Zhu Yao simply saw a bunch of damage values floating above the demonic beast's head, -1,000, -2,000, -3,000. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Was this really that smug teammate who only knew how to slack off? Why did she feel like some sort of incredible seal had been opened? Hey! Girlie, let's go. Squad Captain Nangong waved at her with a calm look. Amen. Let's proceed according to plan. Plan my ass. Flips table. Don't look as though everything is within your grasp, your gay friend is clearly going berserk, hey. After Zhonggu Lu used earth mystic arts to vent his anger, that pitiful demonic beast no longer had the strength to retaliate. It finally let out a furious roar and used its claws to slap away those earth spikes, wanting to regain its dignity as a boss. However, Zhonggu Lu suddenly circulated all of the divine energy in his body and cast an art. In an instant, the ground shook, and after completing the hand seal, he immediately activated it. Landslide, earth rend. In an instant, the entire ground rumbled, and then, like an earthquake, it split open into two sides. The demonic beast lost its balance and fell straight into the ground. However, the instant it fell in, its figure began to transform. It grew a pair of wings and flew up. Just as it was about to escape from the fissure, Zhonggu Lu gritted his teeth. Zhonggu Lu gritted his teeth. In an instant, a dozen or so earth pillars swiftly extended out from the ground. Like chains, they wrapped around his body and directly pulled him back. Now! Under Squad Captain Nangong's command, the other four people cast their arts at the same time. In an instant, four gigantic spiritual swords the size of mountains appeared in the air. Carrying boundless might, they instantly dispersed the surrounding poisonous miasma and smashed downwards at the same time, hitting the demonic beast. A scream instantly resounded throughout the entire secret realm. 4 rows of the same words floated out from that demonic beast's body. Lethal damage, 100,000. After struggling for a few times, it slowly lost all signs of life. The surrounding poisonous miasma began to dissipate as well, revealing the originally blue sky. Success. Zhu Yao was a little exhausted. That sword strike earlier had used up a large half of her divine energy. In an instant, her legs turned a little soft. Her figure swayed, but the side of her waist tightened. In the next instant, she was leaning into a familiar embrace. Master, Yu Yan lowered his head to glance at her. After realizing that she was fine, he habitually stroked her head. He wanted to praise his disciple's outstanding performance, but he did not know how to start. How could he praise someone if he wasn't used to it? Zhu Yao, however, had already pulled him towards the demonic beast's corpse. She had to admit, this boss was simply too hard to fight. Compared to the monsters she had encountered before, in terms of HP and HP, only the gods and devils could surpass it. The main point was, it even had magic defense, so the damage divine arts dealt to it was not very high. However, fortunately, she managed to put it down. Squad Captain Nangong said that the nascent divided pearl was in its stomach. Zhu Yao glanced at the mountain-like corpse, and her expression darkened. This. Do I have to dissect it? She was not interested in dissecting corpses. Dissect it. Squad Captain Nangong looked at her strangely. How's that possible? Not dissect it. Then how were they going to retrieve the quest item? Just as she was about to ask. Suddenly, that pitch-black poisonous corpse emitted out a lustrous light, and began to slowly turn into mist in front of her eyes. In the end, it actually turned into a lump of purplish-black poisonous miasma, which was more than 100 times thicker than the poisonous miasma from before. This is... She was shocked. Don't you know that demonic beasts are undying? Squad Captain Nangong gave a "my teammate has no common sense" look. Undying. Zhu Yao was startled for a moment. She turned to look at the half-dissolved corpse on the ground. Could it be that it can still revive? That's right. Do you have to tell me such a terrifying setting with such a serious face, hey? This demonic beast was born from the poisonous miasma of this land in the first place. Squad Captain Nangong explained with a matter-of-fact look. How can poisonous miasma have life? We are simply scattering it, and 3 days later, these poisonous miasma will once again gather into a new demonic beast. This really was a monster, and it could even respawn endlessly, hey. After Squad Captain Nangong said that, he looked towards the center of the poisonous miasma. A red light flashed, and a red pearl was slowly rising. It grew taller and taller, and it looked as though it was about to charge out of the poisonous miasma. His expression turned joyful as he pointed at the pearl. That's the nascent divided pearl. Let me first contact the teams from the other secret realms. Zhu Yao took a closer look, and saw 6 white words written on top of the red pearl, one of the key fragments. Seeing that the pearl was about to fly out of the poisonous miasma, Zhu Yao took a step forward. She reached out her hand, and was about to pick up the boss quest item. She glanced at the strand of purple miasma on the pearl, and hesitated for a moment. Suddenly, a figure flashed by her side, and snatched the nascent divided pearl before her. I never expected that with just the few of you, you would actually be able to defeat this demonic beast. Several unfamiliar figures suddenly appeared in the air. They were dressed differently, and there were a total of 7 men and 1 woman. Their eyes were faintly filled with excitement. And the one who snatched the nascent divided pearl was the green-robed male deity who was leading the group. Who are you people? Nangong Qing frowned deeply, as he cautiously looked at this group of people who came with ill intentions. Naturally, we're treasure hunters. The leading man coldly snorted, as he looked at the clearly exhausted 5 people with disdain. Seeing how the few of you risked your lives to kill this demonic beast, it can be considered as a form of hard work. I won't kill you all, so leave. You're trying to steal the treasure. Squad Captain Nangong's face was filled with anger. So what if I am? That man did not have the slightest hint of guilt. Squad Captain Nangong clenched his fists, as he gritted his teeth in hatred. Though stealing treasures was a very common occurrence, and these secret realms were filled with such people as well. Nascent divided pearls weren't hard to come by, what was hard was how to protect the treasure, and how to find an opportunity to leave the secret realm together. Hence, before he came in to kill the demonic beast, he had already made preparations. However, he never expected that these people in front of him would be so shameless. The moment they killed the demonic beast, these people immediately rushed out to steal the treasure. Evidently, they had already set their eyes on them. Yet, they had yet to recover their vitality. In the battle earlier, everyone had exhausted their divine energy, especially Zhonggu Lu, who seemed to be completely exhausted. Against these people, they had no chance of winning at all. You guys aren't bad either. Just the 5 of you are able to kill this demonic beast. Even I have to say that I'm impressed. Though that man was speaking words of praise, his smile was filled with glee. Squad Captain Nangong was already gritting his teeth in anger, while Zhonggu Lu looked as if he wanted to disfigure his face. Though, the expressions of the other 3 people were a little strange. Yu Yen still had an expressionless face that looked like a 10,000-year-old block of ice. Yu Ying simply looked at Zhu Yao with a focused expression, while Zhu Yao's face was worried. You there? Zhu Yao could not help but call out to the leading man who stole the treasure. Chapter 355. I want to say, Amen. That man frowned, and glared at her a little discontentedly. What? Do you still want to go against me? No, I just want to. Let me give you a piece of advice. A wise man submits to circumstances. I have already magnanimously spared your lives. I just want to, if you people continue to be stubborn, I don't mind sending you off either. Fellow deity. As for this nascent divided stone, stop dreaming. Just treat it as if you have never obtained it. Actually, you people will feel a little better if you think like that. Is your hand really fine? My hand. What? The man was stunned for a moment. Zhu Yao weakly pointed at the pearl in his hand. I'm saying. Are you fine after holding on to that pearl for so long? Earlier, I saw that there was still poison left on it. The man's complacent face instantly paled. What are you talking about? His expression changed, and suddenly, his entire body was suffused with a dark purple color. He began to twitch, and then, he fell headfirst into the dense fog formed by the demonic beast earlier. In an instant, a series of miserable cries rang out. His body began to quickly corrode, yet he could not use even a single strand of mystic energy. Save! Save me! He reached out a hand to seek help from his teammates in the air. Halfway through, his hand had already turned into bone, and then, it completely melted away. This unforeseen event happened extremely quickly. In less than 5 breaths of time, the man's figure had already disappeared from the fog. What remained were various terrifying and despairing screams that resounded in the air. As for the group of teammates that came with him, none of them moved at all. They all had shocked expressions on their faces. Zhu Yao frowned. So, villains die because they talk too much. Boss. That group of people finally moved. A female deity with a pale expression called out. Her voice was filled with fear, and she turned to glare at the 5 people on the ground. Her eyes were filled with rage. You people killed him. Please. Zhu Yao rolled her eyes at this belated statement. If she was really that worried, why didn't she save him earlier? We didn't do anything. If you knew that the nascent divided pearl was poisonous, why didn't you say so earlier? The female deity gritted her teeth. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Are you retarded? You guys fucking came to snatch my stuff, and I have to wash it clean and wait for you to come and snatch it, right? Where did this self-righteousness come from? You. The woman was flustered. You. Zhu Yao, however, was enraged. Are you guys still going to snatch the nascent divided pearls? Anyway, it's a poisonous one. If you want it, I'll give it to you. Take it or leave it. If you really want to fight. A starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Don't think that we're afraid of you. At the very most, they would perish together. Hurry up and decide, we still have to rush to fight other monsters. You. The female immortal was so angry that her face turned green. Just as she was about to step forward, she was stopped by a person in blue with white tattoos. This person was also the only one in the group who had the words "Unknown Immortal" above his head. Wait. Why are you stopping me? Since it's already useless, there's no point in fighting over it, the man said in a deep voice. The female immortal gritted her teeth and did not charge forward. He ruthlessly glared at Zhu Yao. With an unwilling look, he followed the crowd and left. Only then did Zhu Yao heave a sigh of relief. Yu Yen frowned at the side. He held onto her palm and solemnly said, "No need to worry, your master, I know." Zhu Yao chuckled. If they were to really bring out their true strength, though they did not seem to have the advantage in numbers, with her master dealing with a few other high deities, they would definitely win for sure. However, in this tower, Lightning Divine Hall's hatred seemed to be quite high. If she could avoid exposing it, then she would. I never expected to obtain a useless pearl. Squad Captain Nangong was sad. He glanced at the red pearl that was still sparkling within the poisonous mist. I wasted so much of my strength for nothing. Student Zhonggulu was a little irritated as well. He subconsciously touched his own face, looking as though he was in pain. He wondered if the poison had completely dispersed. He hurriedly summoned a water mirror and carefully inspected himself. Not necessarily. Zhu Yao chuckled and cast a wind art. After spending a huge amount of effort, she finally blew away the layers of thick mist and quickly formed a formation to eject the nascent divided pearl. The marble rolled a few rounds, and in an instant, it arrived at her feet. The poisonous mist once again gathered into a ball, and after being affected by the highly concentrated poisonous mist for a second time, the red pearl that only had a sliver of black aura earlier had now turned half black. Dongfang girlie, what are you trying to do? Squad Captain Nangong looked at her anxiously. You saw it earlier as well. This pearl is highly poisonous. You can't touch it. I have an idea, Squad Captain Nangong Huang. I'm Nangong Cheng. Flip's table. Why did she always call out his name wrongly whenever she had an idea? Don't mind such details. He did mind, all right. He silently glanced at the white-robed male practitioner at the side. Take care of your disciple, hey. The latter continued to remain expressionless. As long as my disciple doesn't court death, it has nothing to do with me. Squad Captain Huang, I don't think this pearl is useless. Why did he become Squad Captain Huang again, hey? This pearl is stained with poison. We can't take it, so how are we supposed to bring it out of the secret realm? He took a deep breath. He was a squad captain with principles. This demonic beast has an undying body, so it must have been challenged by others many times. There are so many practitioners who entered the upper levels, so our squad definitely isn't the only one who encountered this problem. You're saying there's a way to remove this poison? His eyes shone. Everything in the world has a counter to each other. How do you think the purifying pool came about? Oh right. He slapped his thigh, and only then did he recall the purifying pool at the back. Since that pool could disperse the poisonous miasma, it shouldn't be impossible to remove this poison as well. Let's not waste any more time. Hurry and place the nascent divided pearl into the pool, Squad Captain Huang. Zhu Yao waved her hand, and then said to Zhonggulu at the side. Oh right, little Teal, I'll have to trouble you to use an earth-type mystic art to transport the pearl over. You're more professional. Nangong Cheng. I already said I'm Nangong Cheng. Zhonggulu. What the hell is little Teal? Zhu Yao's thoughts were not wrong. The moment Zhonggulu threw the poisonous pearl into the pool, the poisonous miasma on the pearl began to dissolve. Though the speed was much slower than dispersing the poisonous miasma, it was finally beginning to regain its original red color. I have already contacted the squads from the other secret realms. Squad Captain Nangong sighed. Based on the current situation, only 3 out of the 4 secret realms have found nascent divided pearls. The last secret realm has yet to be conquered. It seems like we can't leave the secret realm now. Are we just going to wait like this? Zhonggulu was a little irritated. The poison in this nascent divided pearl will probably disperse after a day. When that time comes, there will definitely be people coming to try and steal the treasure. This time, we won't be as lucky as before. Zhu Yao frowned as well. It was easy to search for treasures, but it was hard to guard them. Back then, because the pearl was poisoned, they left. This nascent divided pearl wasn't poisoned. And once the news spreads, who knows how many people would be attracted over. No matter how high their cultivation levels were, they wouldn't be able to fight against a sea of people. There just happens to be one more nascent divided pearl that we haven't found. We can't leave immediately either. Wait. Apart from his own disciple. Other than his own disciple, Yu Yan, who had been ignoring the others the entire time, suddenly spoke up. His ice-cold eyes swept across the crowd, and finally landed on his disciple. His eyes were a little warm. Setting up a formation is enough. He did not care if the others understood him either, and immediately set down layers of concealment and defensive formations by the side of the pool. The nascent divided pearls that were already half purified in the pool slowly disappeared, along with the poisonous gas that had yet to be purified. That formation was extremely ingenious. Even the ripples of divine energy were hidden away. Continue to attack the demonic beasts. He continued with a solemn voice. The crowd was startled, and they instantly understood what he meant. Good idea. Nangong Qing had an excited look. We will hide the nascent divided pearls in this pool, and 3 days later, that demonic beast will naturally revive. Then, we will pretend that we didn't obtain the nascent divided pearls and continue to attack the demonic beasts. As long as we don't kill them, we naturally won't be suspected by others. When the final secret realm is contacted, then we will charge out together. As expected, it's a good idea. Daoist Beichin. The more Nangong Qing thought about it, the more he felt that it was feasible. His eyes shone as he looked at Yu Yan. He never expected that although he looked cold, he actually had quite an idea. Just as he was about to express his admiration for him. However, Zhu Yao suddenly squeezed in. With a smack, she slapped away the claws that he extended towards her. Ho ho, Captain Huang, let's think about how we're going to hide for the next 3 days. Zhu Yao smiled with an amiable look. You dare to touch my master with your claws. Why did he suddenly feel that Dongfang girlie's expression was so terrifying? In order to hide the fact that they had already obtained the mission item, adding that the demonic beasts had yet to revive, the crowd pondered for a moment. They decided to make a trip back to the city. Earlier, there was already a small squad that found out about them killing the demonic beasts, and they were certain that there were people who were unwilling to give up and came back to investigate. They might as well directly return to the city and make their presence known. This way, even if others had doubts, they would most likely be dispelled. Because the setting of the nascent divided pearls was that returning to the city alone was ineffective, and all 5 of them had to be brought together. As expected, the moment they returned to the city, they received countless gazes of pity and schadenfreude. Zhu Yao and the others were newcomers, so it wasn't a big deal. Nangong and Zhonggu, who were familiar with each other, had already gained some popularity in the city. They immediately received a huge wave of sympathy from various passers-by, and among them, there was no lack of people who threw stones at them when they were down. The 2 of them accepted all of them with gloomy expressions, perfectly portraying the image of an unlucky youth who was possessed by the god of misfortune and was in despair. As for Zhu Yao's master and Yu Ying, they quietly watched them act cool at the side. 3 days later, the few of them announced that they would once again enter the same secret realm, and challenge the same demonic beasts to regain their pride. No one doubted them, and instead, they sent them into the secret realm with a wave of ridicule and ridicule. Just like that, the 55th squad easily returned to the side of the demonic beasts, while the nascent divided pearls were still quietly lying in the pool. The few of them discussed, and decided to knock on that unlucky demonic beast that revived every 2 hours, as an act to deal with the deities who came to watch. Of course, except for Zhonggu Lu. The poisonous gas back then had cast a shadow over his heart, and he refused to go out no matter what. Every day, he would squat by the side of the pool and look at his own face with the water mirror, afraid that he would be poisoned again. A month later, the crowd of deities saw that the 5 of them were still guarding the demonic beast, yet they were still unable to kill it. One after another, they sighed and walked away. These people were really idiots. There was more than one demonic beast in this secret realm, yet they just had to go against it. For a moment, everyone gave up on the thought of snatching the treasure, and slowly, no one went to block the way to pick up the leftovers. Only when the people who found the nascent divided pearls in the 5 secret realms had contacted each other did the 5 of them rush out of the secret realm together. Only then did the deities regain their senses. They were fooled, but unfortunately, the outcome was already set. Chapter 356. The moment they exited the secret realm, the nascent divided pearls had already flown out. Together with the 4 pearls brought out by the other secret realm teams, they combined together. Then, they turned into several white light spots and entered the foreheads of the few people who just exited the secret realm. A talisman imprint of the word 1 faintly appeared. The stone steps leading to the 2nd floor, which they couldn't step on previously, automatically floated to their feet, lifting them up to a bright place above their heads. Zhu Yao curiously stroked the 1 character talisman on her forehead. It seemed like this talisman was the proof of passing this stage. Most probably, this number was calculated according to the number of floors passed. The 1st floor was the 1st floor, the 2nd floor, wait a minute. At the thought of having a 2 above his head in the future, he immediately felt uncomfortable. Because they needed to gather all 5 nascent divided pearls, there were 19 people in this group who passed together. They all flew towards the white light above their heads. Not long after, everyone was surrounded by white light. She only saw a flash of white light in front of her, and she could faintly see that everyone was surrounded by flowing light. She immediately felt refreshed, and her inner breath almost doubled in an instant. In the next moment, everyone was standing on a white stone platform. The names above the immortals' heads had all been refreshed. There were no longer any level 1 immortals. Most of them were unknown immortals. Did they all level up? Even their party was the same. Above the leader's head was Nangong Huang, level 3, and the brawny teammate beside him was also Little Green. Huh, what's wrong? Zhu Yao once again glanced at her master at the side and Yuing at the back. There were still no names or levels above the heads of the 3 of them. She wondered if the system had crashed. However, why did Nangong Huanglian level up twice while Little Greenie only leveled up once? Was it because the party leader ate a lot of experience? The surrounding white light dissipated, and suddenly, a cry of surprise came from the front. They're coming up. Hurry up and surround him. Don't let him escape. She heard a few rustling sounds, and then a large group of unknown immortals crowded in front of her. All of them were level 2 or 3. In an instant, they surrounded the dozen of them so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Pairs of eyes stared at them. He looked at them with excitement and scrutiny. Zhu Yao was shocked as she looked at the people surrounding her. Were they trying to show off their might to a rookie? Stop them. They're definitely inside. Check carefully. We can't miss it. This is the first batch of people who came here after receiving the news. They are definitely inside. This is such a rare opportunity. Don't let him escape. A large group of 2nd and 3rd level immortals began to discuss among themselves with a hint of eagerness and excitement, as if they were looking for someone. Zhu Yao's heart trembled. Suddenly, he had a bad premonition, and he couldn't help but tug at his master beside him. Don't worry. His master immediately sent a voice transmission over. We have not received the floor master's immortal seal. As long as we do not reveal our cultivation techniques, they will not be able to recognize us. Oh. It was no wonder that his master refused to become the tower master back then. It was not because it was troublesome, but to guard against this. Master was thinking too far ahead, wasn't he? Wouldn't he be letting down a certain tower master like this? But I still want to give it a thumbs up. None of these people possessed the aura of the divine seal of the lightning divine tower. Is he not here? Sure enough, one of the immortals standing inside took a closer look at the dozen or so immortals who had just entered the second floor. He frowned. They were really looking for them. How is this possible? Someone else also noticed this problem. Didn't the person who came last time say that he saw someone using a lightning attribute cultivation technique in the lower levels? Shouldn't they be here by now? Even if the floor master's immortal seal had been passed down, it shouldn't have disappeared so quickly. Could it be that the next batch is coming? The surrounding deities instantly revealed looks of disappointment. Some had already begun to leave, but there were still some who did not give up, and came forward to inquire about it. I don't believe it. The new disciples of Lightning Divine Hall are definitely inside. What are your names? Is there anyone with the Daoist name? The 19 people who had just leveled up were a little angry. Since it was their first time here, they didn't want to offend anyone, so they reported their names or Taoist names one by one. The more they reported, the more disappointed they became. Soon, it was the 55th team's turn. Zhu Yao was instantly filled with confidence. He lied without blushing or gasping for breath. I'm Zhang San. Yu Yan, Li Si. Yuing, Wang Wu. Zhonggu Lu, the hell is Zhao Lu. Nangong Qin, Sun Qi. Ha! Why did I pick up this name? The faces of the deities faintly twitched for a moment. Why did they feel that something was amiss? Only when all 19 people's names had been reported did the deities disperse with disappointed looks. They all returned to their own homes to look for their mothers. Bamboo Squad Captain Nangong was dumbfounded for a moment as well. Why did he subconsciously say the name Sun Qi? Hey. Forget it. He turned to look at his squad mates behind him. Dongfang girly. We have to hurry to the Amway Hall to receive the next mission. There's an Amway Hall here as well. Zhu Yao was startled. Of course. Squad Captain Nangong said with a proud look. This lord has people above him. We, the Amway Hall, have branches in the lower 10 floors. Just how many people did you guys Amway Hall? Compared to the first floor, the divine city of the second floor was much bigger. The group of 5 searched for a long while before they saw the signboard for the Amway Hall at the corner of the East Street. Compared to the first floor, there were even more deities on the second floor. At the very center of the street, they saw a flight of stairs similar to the one on the first floor. It should be leading to the lower 3 floors. This time, when they returned to the Amway Hall, there were no deities guarding it. However, a small formation was currently flashing in the Great Hall. After taking a closer look, this formation was the same as the one leading to the lower 3 floors in the city. Only after asking did they find out that the formation was used to transmit information to newcomers. Zhu Yao immediately placed the jade tablet she obtained from the lower floor into the formation. Sweeping through it with her divine sense, she found that there were many more things in the jade tablet as expected. Including the map of this floor, there was even a mission introduction. After taking a closer look, compared to the lower floor, this floor's mission was much harder. To sum it up, the lower floor was a group of people fighting against a single monster, while this floor was a group of people fighting against a group of monsters. The content was still the same: collect nascent divided pearls to synthesize the pass. However, the amount of traffic this time was a little higher, so each person needed 10 pearls. This jade tablet did not explain how to obtain these nascent divided pearls. I believe this mission will be much harder. Squad Captain Nangong frowned. And the quantity required this time is too great. With the 5 of us working together, it will most likely be very hard to complete. Why don't we? He suddenly turned to look at Zhu Yao, and said with a scorching gaze. Dongfang girly, let's go pimp. With a swoosh, a cold sword that was suffused with a cold light was already placed on his neck. Wait. Fellow Daoist Beichin, don't be agitated. I meant to recruit people. It was a slip of the tongue. Your slip of the tongue is a little too far off, isn't it? Are you sure you didn't accidentally expose your true nature? Fellow Taoists, are you people from the Amway Hall as well? A gentle voice suddenly sounded from behind them. When she turned to look, she only saw a light breeze blowing past, and 6 dazzling figures appeared at the entrance. Zhu Yao instantly felt a tortoise, a tyrannical aura assaulting her. Dear ones, do you still remember the promise we made by Great Lake? Today, we'll be having an interview with an author at 7:30. Address to be continued. Chapter 357. The women were gentle and beautiful, while the men were elegant and handsome. There were a total of 5 men and 1 woman. At first glance, they looked pleasing to the eye. Their entire bodies seemed to be glowing, as though they came with their own special effects. It would be perfect if there was a piece of music. The one who spoke earlier was the woman walking in the middle. She was dressed in a pink gown, and her smile was especially sweet. She walked straight towards them. After sizing up the few of them, his line of sight landed on Yu Yan next to Zhu Yao. He was slightly startled, took 2 steps forward, and softly asked. Fellow deities, are you all worried about this nascent divided pearl as well? Though her words were directed at the crowd, her eyes were looking straight at Yu Yan. She blinked her eyes, looking as though she wanted to say something, but was still embarrassed. Clearly, Zhu Yao and Nangong Qing were the closest to her, yet, she just had to ask her master who was further away. Her heart instantly froze for a moment, and she took a step forward. What's going on? This man has an owner. Fellow Daoist, we're worried about finding helpers as well. Why don't we work together? As though she could not see Zhu Yao, the woman continued to look at Yu Yan. Her face was filled with smiles the entire time, carrying a hint of mischievousness, as though she was a neighbor's little sister. And the 5 men by her side had been looking at her with doting smiles the entire time. Yu Yan glanced at the person who suddenly stood in front of him, and habitually frowned. The cold aura emitting from his body grew heavier, and he casually grabbed Nangong Qing next to him. Decide. What's the point of slacking off when you're in your position? Nangong Qing. She's not looking for him, so it's my fault. Fellow Daoist, I'm the captain of this team. I wonder what do you mean by working together, miss? Ah, so you're the captain. The woman was startled for a moment. Her expression changed, and she instantly blushed. She timidly glanced at Yu Yan. I'm sorry, Her pure deer-like eyes, and that hint of redness on her face, could cause all male creatures to feel pity for her, making it hard for them to reprimand her. As a woman, Zhu Yao expressed that she had never seen such a skill before. As expected, Nangong Chang's expression instantly softened. It's fine. Fellow Daoist, do you wish to form a team with us? Yes. She nodded. I'm Mei Shui, and I've just joined the Amway group. 10 nascent divided pearls are truly too much, and the places with nascent divided pearls on the 2nd floor are all very dangerous, so I'd like to invite everyone to come along. What do you think? Nangong Chang's face lit up. There were 6 people on the other side. Including them, there were 11. Their strength had increased by more than half. It would not be a problem for them to deal with 3 demonic beasts at the same time. Coincidentally, we also want to find more people. Immortal friend Mei Shue's suggestion is just right. Let me discuss it with my teammates, as long as I object. Zhu Yao raised her claws. Sister Dongfang. Nangong was stunned for a moment. Zhu Yao patted on Nangong Cheng's shoulder. You and little Qing should join their team. My master and I won't join in the fun. Don't, Dongfang girlie. We came up from the next level together. It's fate. Why do we have to separate? Also, I'm not Captain Huang. Just as Zhu Yao was about to explain, Mei Shue suddenly took a step forward and butted in. This big sis. These nascent divided pearls are extremely hard to come by. One more person means one more chance of success. Furthermore, we have already been on this level for quite some time. We are extremely familiar with the terrain, and with more people, we will definitely be able to reach the 3rd level very quickly. Big sis, why must you make things difficult for Captain? She said with a pained look, as though her refusal to form a team was something that would anger even the gods. Does it have anything to do with you? What does it have to do with you? This person is sick, right? Why did she pull aggro for me for no reason? Zhu Yao rolled her eyes. She did not have a good impression of this person in the first place, so she couldn't be bothered with her anymore. She continued to speak to Nangong Qing. Captain Huang, the nascent divided pearls of the 2nd level aren't in the secret realm. Furthermore, they didn't request for us to use them together. Though the requested quantity is a little high, it's not like we can't gather them by ourselves. I don't have any plans to form another team for now, so let's bid farewell here. Actually, when she saw the information earlier, she already had the intention to move alone. The aggro of Lightning Divine Palace was too high. If they were to move together, putting aside the fact that they couldn't use lightning type arts, they might even be exposed at any moment. If it was just her and her master, there wouldn't be much to worry about. Wait a minute. Seeing that she was really about to leave, Mei Shue suddenly stepped forward and pulled her sleeves. Big sis, stop. Zhu Yao interrupted her words. Firstly, I don't have a little sister. Secondly, you've already said that you've been in the 2nd level for quite some time. I've only just entered today, and I've never heard of you in the divine realm either. This proves that you've been in the tower longer than me, so you're definitely older than me. You're calling me little sister. Don't you think you're acting a little too young? Thirdly, this is the first time we've met, so why do you keep pestering me? Mei Shue's expression stiffened for a moment, yet, her eyes suddenly reddened, as though she had suffered some kind of huge grievance. Zhu Yao instantly received 5 murderous gazes from behind her. I'm doing this for your own good. I want everyone to be together. If Big Sis isn't willing, Forget it, Shue. A green-robed man on her right stood out. Glaring at Zhu Yao, he coldly snorted. In this world, there are people who don't know what's good for them, and have eyes but fail to see. Not everyone is as kind as you. Don't feel bad for people like them. The hell? She simply wanted to leave their group, and it wasn't even their group. How could they not know what's good for them, and have eyes but fail to see? Who are these retards? I'm fine. Mei Shue shook her head. She once again looked at Zhu Yao and said, I just feel that Big Sis will definitely regret your stubbornness, and you will also implicate your fellow Daoist. She looked at Yu Yan at the back with a sincere look. This fellow Daoist, please reconsider as well. The 2nd floor cannot be compared to the 1st floor. Ho ho. Zhu Yao immediately took a step forward, knocking into her master's front. That gaze of hers made her feel as though she was being poached away. According to what you're saying, a stubborn person like me shouldn't join your group and implicate you even more. Shouldn't you be thanking me? Mei Shui was startled. In an instant, her eyes reddened even more, and her expression grew even more aggrieved. Faintly, glistening teardrops could be seen. Big sis doesn't like Mei Shui. That's why you don't agree to form a group with me. That's right. Zhu Yao nodded. Everyone present was dumbfounded for a moment. No one had expected that she would actually admit it so straightforwardly. I just don't like you. Zhu Yao said seriously. I don't even know where you popped out from, yet you insist on stopping me from leaving. It would be strange if I like you. I thought you knew, but you don't. You. The green-clothed male deity earlier was enraged. You actually dare to be rude to Shui? In an instant, a powerful pressure pressed towards her, and it was filled with killing intent. Zhu Yao was startled. She never expected that the other party would directly make a move, and for a moment, she was unable to react. Just as the pressure was about to land on her, her waist tightened, and she was instantly pulled into Yu Yan's embrace. In the next moment, a pressure that was even stronger than before, which carried a chilling intent, pressed back at her. In an instant, a terrifying aura enveloped the entire Amway Hall. That green-clothed male deity could not stabilize himself for a moment, and as his divine energy rebounded, he puked out a mouthful of blood. Big brother Yeyu! Mei Shui exclaimed, and hurriedly held on to him, preventing him from falling. The others did not have it easy either. Though the pressure was not directed at them, they still felt their hearts churning, and cold sweat dripped down. The faces of the other 4 men instantly paled, and they looked at Yu Yan in front of them in shock. A person who had just arrived at the second floor actually had such powerful strength. Yu Yan coldly swept his eyes across the crowd, and in an instant, the temperature in the room dropped by several degrees. You can quarrel, but you can't hurt people. Injuring his disciple in front of him, did they think he was blind? For a moment, no one present made a sound, especially those few peerless men, their expressions were especially heavy. Instead, that female deity called Mei Shui raised her head and glanced at Yu Yan. A hint of light flashed across her eyes, but it immediately disappeared. With a worried expression, she held on to the injured green-clothed male deity. Zhu Yao frowned, and a strange feeling rose in the depths of her heart. She faintly felt that something was amiss, but she could not recall what it was. Yu Yan turned to look at Nangong Qing, and coldly said 2 words. Leave the party. Ah. Nangong Qing was startled for a moment, and then he immediately nodded. Oh. He did not waste any words, and pulled his disciple out of the door. This time, they left very smoothly, and no one dared to stop them. See, who said that violence could not solve problems? They flew towards a forest in the south of the Divine City, searching for the whereabouts of the nascent divided pearls. Recalling what happened earlier, the strange feeling in the depths of Zhu Yao's heart grew deeper. That Mei Shui kept giving her a strange sense of familiarity, especially that combination of 5 men and 1 woman. These 5 male deities all had extraordinary looks and auras. Even in the divine realm where everyone's appearance was off the charts, they could still be considered as top-notch, and were not inferior to her master. Furthermore, the few of them were all level 3, which meant that they could be considered as well-known figures in this second floor. She just did not know why they would bring along a level 1 Mei Shui. That's right, Mei Shui was level 1. When she noticed her level, even Zhu Yao was shocked. This was the first level 1 player she had seen on the second floor. And the way those men looked at her, they did not look like ordinary deity friends either. Instead, they looked a little like lovers. 5 against 1, Their tastes sure are heavy. Shouldn't a situation like this be the standard for a Mary Sue? Zhu Yao's feet paused, and a bell rang in her mind. A thread was instantly connected, and she knew what that strange feeling was. She was too similar to Yi Ling from before. The same image of a little white flower, the same Mary Sue attribute, the same circle of men who would die for her, and the same desire to pull beautiful men into their harem whenever they saw them. But why wasn't there the word bug on her face? She only walked the path of a harem, and did not walk the path of world destruction. Or could it be that the interior of the lightning divine tower was not considered a world? Why did she feel that people like this were even scarier? A humanoid biological weapon that would attract bees and butterflies at any moment and any place. Master. She pulled onto the man next to her, and hugged him tightly. Raising her head, she said seriously. Promise me, just like how fifth brother promised Little Swallow. Treasure your disciple, and stay away from Mei Shui's Mary Sue, all right? If you have a change of heart, I will take revenge on society. Yu Yan was startled for a moment. He looked a little strangely at his stupid disciple, and said with a frown. Who's Mei Shui? Chapter 358. Zhu Yao carefully looked at the map again, and then looked at the surrounding trees that were as tall as the clouds. Master, what are we doing here? Naturally, I'm looking for that nascent divided pearl. Yu Yan replied with a stern look. Are you sure you can find it in this forest? He reached out his hand and stroked her head. Last time, the nascent divided pearl was inside the body of a demonic beast, and demonic beasts usually hide within the forest. But Master, we've been here for a month already. Demonic beasts don't have any aura, so we can't use our divine senses to detect them. But we've walked this road 3 times today. Are you sure we're not lost? The white figure in front of him stiffened, and then immediately said seriously, Don't be impatient. As he spoke, he turned around and walked towards another path. Master, we just came from that road. His figure paused for a moment, and then he decisively turned into another path. Yes, he just wanted to take a closer look, he definitely wasn't lost. Zhu Yao's expression darkened as she followed behind. So her master was not face-blind, but he had a poor sense of direction. Without the GPS of his divine sense, he was completely unable to recognize the way. Could it be that he was such a homebody? In the next few days, a certain master completely displayed the basic integrity of a person with no sense of direction. Master, we've already walked that path. Master, we'll reach the lakeside where we rested just now. Master, we climbed over that rock just now. Have you forgotten? Master, don't draw any more marks on this tree. You've already done it 4 times. This is the 5th time. Wait. Master, why did you have to turn back? We just got here. Master, you. Yao. Yu Yan frowned, and finally stopped his footsteps. Pulling his disciple, he said with a stern expression. Your master feels that it's better to search with a flying sword, and use divine sense to investigate. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Master, didn't you say demonic beasts can't find us with their divine sense? You're just trying to avoid the fact that you have no sense of direction, right? I feel that not all nascent divided pearls originate from the bodies of demonic beasts. He analyzed seriously. Master, are you sure you didn't lose your way? I know you have no sense of direction. Would you please hand over the right to lead the way to me? Nonsense. A certain master still had a serious look on his face. Previously on the first floor. The nascent divided pearls of the 5 secret realms aren't all on the demonic beasts either. This place should be the same as well. Then master thinks. That's enough. Although having a bad sense of direction wasn't an illness, he shouldn't give up on treatment. Nascent divided pearl. It might be somewhere else. Hee hee. Master, the way you quibble is so refreshing. He let out a heavy sigh. He plucked an unknown fruit from a nearby tree. If it's not on a magical beast, can it grow from a tree? Ding. Obtained 1 nascent divided pearl. Clearance key 2. Completion rate, Xu Yao, Yu Yen, Yuin. He looked at the fruit that had suddenly turned into a green bead in his hand and stared at it silently for 3 seconds. It really grew out of the tree. Damn. What happened to your basic integrity as a quest item? Do you have to be so casual? Looks like the path they've taken is not wrong. Master, do you have any shame? Xu Yao carefully inspected the tree. It looked very normal, and if not for the fruits hanging on the tree, it wouldn't even have any ornamental value. Furthermore, the fruits on the tree were all greener than the previous one. With a single glance, she could tell that they were the type that would sour one's teeth. However, the fruits on this tree were actually all nascent divided pearls. Xu Yao instantly felt that she had stepped on dog shit. It seemed like wandering around this forest for more than a month had its uses. Each of them plucked 10 of them, and after a few notifications, the 10 nascent divided pearls instantly combined into a marble-like rainbow pearl. A row of words floated on top of it, clearance key 2. Xu Yao never expected that they would pass this stage so easily. It was so simple that she could not believe her own eyes. After adjusting herself for a moment, she planned on rushing back to the Divine City from before and leveling up to the lower 3rd floor. This time, there was no need for her to look for demonic beasts, and she could use her divine sense to explore the path. In the end, she realized that they were actually at the extreme north of the lower 2nd floor. Back then, when they left the city, they were clearly heading towards the south. In the end, they turned to the north. She had to admit that her master's standard of having a bad sense of direction had already reached perfection. Let's go. Yu Yen hugged his disciple with a calm expression, flew up, and headed straight in the direction of the Divine City. In the depths of his heart, however, he was already overjoyed. With the powerful GPS that was his divine sense, a certain master had instantly turned into a little navigational expert. After choosing the shortest route, he could finally fly confidently, freely, and willfully. His disciple no longer had to worry about him having a bad sense of direction. Because they had taken a huge detour in the beginning, they were naturally not taking the same route this time. Xu Yao thought that their speed would increase by quite a bit, but after flying for an hour, her master suddenly paused and stopped in the air. What's wrong? Yu Yen frowned as he looked to the front. There's someone in front. Xu Yao scanned the area with her divine sense. There was indeed the aura of a deity in the surroundings, though it was too far away, so she could not see it clearly. Furthermore, the air carried a faint stench of blood. Who is it? He did not reply, but his expression turned even more solemn. Yu Ying, however, said at the side. It's someone from the previous party. Previous party. Xu Yao was startled. It's Captain Nangong Huang. Let's go take a look. She increased her speed, and immediately flew towards the direction where the stench of blood was coming from. As expected, 50 kilometers away, Captain Nangong from before was currently lying on the ground with a body covered in blood. One of his arms was missing, and the wound was uneven, as though it was forcefully torn off by something. A large patch of fresh blood dyed the ground, and he was currently half kneeling on the ground while panting heavily. His aura was unstable, and even the level above his head was constantly flashing between 2 and 3. Was he going to drop a level? Nangong Huang. Xu Yao could not help but shout out. This old man is called Nangong Qing. The person on the ground habitually roared back, and when he saw Xu Yao, he was startled for a moment. Why are you here? You guys. Why are you here? I should be asking you that. How did you suffer such heavy injuries? Where are the others? Zhu Yao casually cast a few hemostasis arts on him. Didn't he form a party with that Mary Sue from before? Why was he here alone? The others. Just as he was about to explain, as though he suddenly recalled something, he pushed her away. Hurry, leave this place. Otherwise, it'll be too late. What? Before Zhu Yao could even understand the situation, she suddenly heard a series of sharp and terrifying roars. The surrounding air seemed to have suddenly dropped by several tens of degrees, and waves of bone-piercing cold wind blew towards them. It's too late. Squad Captain Nangong's face instantly turned deathly pale. You. Yao. Yu Yan pulled his disciple up, protecting her behind him. His two hands formed hand seals. His two hands formed a seal, and in an instant, all kinds of seals flew out from his hands. Instantly, a transparent barrier was set up in an area with a radius of tens of meters around them, and a dozen or so huge spirit swords descended from the sky. Dozens of gigantic spiritual swords descended from the sky, surrounding their surroundings. They firmly protected the few of them inside. This was a 5-elemental sword spirit formation. It was a defensive formation that was only inferior to the 9 revolutions 5-elemental lightning formation outside the lightning divine hall. The moment the formation was formed, the surroundings rumbled. Hundreds of demonic beasts of various shapes and sizes appeared in the surroundings, and they began to crazily smash and tear at them. Zhu Yao was stunned. Earlier, there wasn't even the slightest bit of movement. Just where did so many demonic beasts pop out from? It's useless. Nangong Cheng's face was ashen, as he looked at the 3 of them with guilt. These demonic beasts were lured over by the extermination formation, and there will only be more of them. Forget about the 3 of you, even if there were 30 of you, you might not be able to defeat them. Extermination formation, an extermination formation that could exterminate all living beings. Who would lay down a formation like this? Yu Yan frowned even deeper. He immediately summoned his own life lightning sword, and took a few steps forward. I'm sorry. I even dragged you guys into this. Nangong Qing looked at Zhu Yao with a guilty look. Don't speak for now. Zhu Yao cast an art to temporarily stop his bleeding, and then sent a strand of divine energy into his body, only to realize that the injuries in his body had worsened. His meridians were about to turn into mush, and even his dantian was in danger of rupturing. She immediately sat cross-legged behind him. Calm your mind, I will help you protect your dantian and heart meridian. Forget it. Nangong Qing, however, shook his head. Currently, I can no longer escape. It's just a waste of your divine energy. Dongfang girly, don't bother about me. I won't be able to live. If you guys charge out with all your strength, there might still be a chance of survival. Why are you spouting so much nonsense? Zhu Yao couldn't be bothered with him. She immediately injected a strand of divine energy into his body, trying her best to stabilize his dantian that was about to collapse. Nangong Qing, however, still tried his best to explain. There are so many demonic beasts, and they're all demonic beasts with extreme mean attributes. It's basically impossible to escape with me. While there aren't many demonic beasts gathered here, the 2 of you should escape immediately. Shut up. Why didn't she realize that he was such a chatterbox in the past? I'm serious, Dongfang girly. Nangong Qing grew anxious. As he tried to persuade her, he puked out blood. This old one will repay the 2 of you for your help in my next life. However, this group of demonic beasts are all extreme mean beasts that live in the north, and only lightning can restrain them. You guys won't be able to defeat them. The more he spoke, the more despair he felt. If you guys don't leave now, it will be too late. Unless you guys can invite that person from Lightning Divine Palace over, rumble. Halfway through his words, lightning flashes filled the sky. Bolts of lightning that were as thick as water buckets descended from the sky, fiercely striking towards the demonic beasts that were surrounding them. In the sky, a figure dressed in snow-white robes was currently wielding a lightning sword. With a light swing, the entire sky was filled with lightning bolts. Ah! Lightning! Lightning! Lightning Divine Palace! There must be something wrong with the way he was injured. Why the hell does fellow Daoist Beichin know how to use the Imperial Lightning Arts? Dong! Dongfang girly! What? Zhu Yao took the opportunity to guide her divine energy and seal his shattered meridians. She then stabilized his dantian that was about to collapse, and only then did she stand up. Is he really your master? Biological. Duh. If he's not my biological master, then why would he be your master? Didn't they say that only one person from Lightning Divine Palace entered? When did it become 3? Chapter 359. Yu Yao. Yu Yan swept away a field of demonic beasts, and immediately flew down. He glanced at Captain Huang, who was no longer in critical condition. Get out. Zhu Yao nodded, and picked up Nangong Huang who was on the ground. Let's go. Wait. Nangong Qing reached out his hand and grabbed something from the ground. Only then did Zhu Yao carry him, and together with Yu Yan, they flew towards the place where the lightning bolt had struck a hole. Only after flying up did he realize how many demonic beasts there were in the surroundings. There were at least 1,000 of them. No wonder they hadn't seen a single magical beast in the forest for a long time. They had all come here. Yu Yan summoned a lightning dragon, and Zhu Yao did not remain idle either. She immediately summoned her own life origin sword, Patch. With a light swing, she immediately released her sword intent. A phoenix formed from red lightning bolts, together with her master's lightning dragon, instantly swept out a small path in front of her. The scattered demonic beasts in the surroundings began to reform once more. Charge out! Yu Yan grabbed onto the person in his disciple's hands, and flew towards the path he had swept open, sweeping away the remaining demonic beasts along the way. Just as Zhu Yao was about to catch up, she suddenly stopped for a moment. Lowering her head to look at the figure standing at the center of the formation, she could not help but call out. Hurry! The figure below was stunned for a moment. Then, the corners of his mouth curled up, revealing a smile that was like a spring breeze caressing his face. It was as if he had found a new lease of life. Zhu Yao's heart sank, and for some reason, she felt a little frustrated, as she immediately followed after him. The figure on the ground flashed and followed behind her. It was still a distance that was neither close nor far, but compared to the deathly aura from before, there seemed to be a trace of life in it. They flew all the way back to the forest where they had gotten lost, and only stopped when they could no longer hear the sound of any magical beasts. Yu Yan found a hidden valley for Nangong Qing to recuperate. Though his injuries were very heavy, because Zhu Yao had sealed his meridians and protected his dantian in time, his foundations were not harmed. On top of that, he was a demon immortal to begin with and had a strong physique. His recovery rate was much faster than that of an immortal cultivator. After resting for a few hours, the wounds on his body had already begun to heal. However, it would take some time for the arm to regenerate. The level above his head also dropped by a level. It was originally level 3, but now it was level 2. Just like his good gay friend, Zhonggu Lu. Sister Dongfang, thank you so much. I. Don't mention it. Call me Lei Feng. Oh right, where's little Teal? Only then did Zhu Yao recall. Did you two separate? Why are you alone? Nope. It's here. Nangong Qing reached out and picked up a bloody thing that had been placed beside him. Zhu Yao seriously looked at his hands. That thing in his hands was a withered yellow object that looked like grass roots. Is this rice straw? And it had even been harvested. I'm a flower immortal. The withered grass in his hands suddenly jumped up, and the 4 withered branches swayed left and right. You actually put me in the same category as those ugly straws. How could they have my peerless beauty and elegance? This voice was Little Teal. Zhu Yao was shocked. She casually cast a dirt removal art on it, and only then did it reveal its dull appearance. It was like a yellow branch that had not been watered for hundreds of years. There was indeed a flower at the center, but the 4 petals were twisted together, as if they were going to wither at any moment. You're a flower immortal. There aren't many spiritual monsters that can cultivate into high deities. You're pretty amazing. The cultivation level of spiritual monsters had never been high, and this was the first time she had seen one that could cultivate into a high deity and enter the lightning divine tower. At least you have some foresight. It waved its dried leaves and twisted them. But even if you praise me like that, I'm not really happy. It was clearly very happy. Why did you return to your original form? Zhu Yao looked at the 2 of them. Didn't you 2 form a party with Mei Shui? Why are you 2 the only ones left? Where are they? Zhonggu Lu had just waved his leaves, and they immediately fell back down. Nangong Cheng's face was also filled with anger. He gritted his teeth so hard that they creaked. Don't mention it. I was blind as well. I mistakenly trusted those shameless scums. Nangong Qing angrily recounted the matter of him separating from them. Initially, we had agreed to come to the north to search for demonic beasts with nascent divided pearls. However, that Mei Shui or whatever, insisted on coming to the depths of this forest. She said that she obtained a new ancient secret formation. As long as she lured all the demonic beasts into the formation, she wouldn't even need to make a move. She would be able to obtain the nascent divided pearls. However, who would have thought that the formation she mentioned was actually an extermination formation? This daddy here has never seen such a stupid person in my entire life. Zhonggu Lu interrupted. That extermination formation exterminates all living beings. However, demonic beasts can't be considered living beings in the first place. They are undying and have no souls. The moment she activated the extermination formation, all other living beings died, leaving only demonic beasts. How is this looking for nascent divided pearls? She's clearly looking for a beating. She really didn't know that Mary Sue's brain worked so weirdly. Initially, we had the chance to escape. Nangong Qing continued. Back then, the moment the extermination formation was activated, I sensed that something was amiss. I told everyone to hurry and retreat. However, that girl called Mei Shui insisted that the formation was effective, and refused to leave no matter what. As for her team members, they were all blind. When she said that, they actually believed her. They had to wait for the demonic beasts to catch up before they believed that it was an extermination formation. Then why were you guys there? When she first discovered them, there weren't any auras of other formations in the surroundings, and the surroundings didn't look like a formation that could exterminate living beings had been activated either. This proved that they had already escaped. Nangong Cheng's expression turned even uglier. We risked our lives to carve out a path of blood. Initially, it wasn't impossible for the 8 of us to gather our strength. Who knew that female deity Mei was a good-looking but useless person? Putting aside the fact that she was crying the entire time, the others even had to split their attention to protect her. She was almost devoured by demonic beasts a few times, yet those 5 people acted as though they had taken the wrong medicine and went to protect her alone. In the end, only Brother Zhonggu and I were left there to kill the enemies. The more he spoke, the angrier he got. He even seemed to be gritting his teeth a little. I just casually said a few words, and she actually took a deep breath. She insisted on committing suicide, saying that she didn't want to implicate us. The hell, what kind of situation was that? She actually wanted to commit suicide. If she wanted to commit suicide, so be it. Wouldn't it be fine if she just crawled into the beast's mouth? She even went crazy and wanted to commit suicide by snatching my weapon. This was an Oscar, young man. What happened after that? After that. His expression darkened, and he gritted his teeth. After that, the other 5 fellow immortals also went crazy. They actually wanted to fight me to the death because of her. They said something about a duel. Fuck, what kind of situation was this? They actually wanted to duel me. If not for the fact that she was a female, I really wanted to bite her to death. It seemed like the internal conflict was very deep. Then, how did you guys get out? Nangong Cheng took a few deep breaths, and then said slowly, it was Brother Zhonggu. He used all the immortal chi in his body and used the shattering technique to detonate it. With great difficulty, he blasted an opening. Only then did we get out of that extermination array. When we reached that dense forest, my hand was also broken in the same way. After we got out, we split up. After that, my injuries were too severe, and I couldn't fly anymore. That was why I fell into that dense forest and was chased by the demonic beasts. No wonder little Qing turned back into her original form. If not for you, Dongfang Mei, appearing in time, even if I wasn't eaten by those demonic beasts, my dantian would have been shattered and my cultivation destroyed. He said gratefully. Thank you, Dongfang Mei. It was just on the way. Zhu Yao patted on his shoulder, and said with a heroic look. You don't have to be so courteous with me, Squad Captain Nangong Huang. He's called Nangong Cheng. Your dantian is already fine, but your meridians still have to be healed slowly. Though, little Qing. She lowered her head to look at the withered grass at the side. Using her divine sense to inspect it, she realized that there really wasn't a single strand of divine energy in his body. How could a plant's injuries be healed? Could it be, hey, what's with that expression of yours, as though you want to fertilize me? Zhonggu Lu instantly stood up. His 2 leaves slanted forward, forming a huge cross. Little Qing, don't be so sensitive. I'm not thinking of fertilizing you. That's not all, I just want to water you. Student Zhonggu Lu firmly rejected all unreasonable breeding practices, and firmly rejected Zhu Yao's kind act of watering and fertilizing him. Zhu Yao expressed her sadness. She was the best at growing flowers. In the modern era, the flowers and plants she grew were all more beautiful than the previous one. Her skills were definitely at the professional level. She did not expect that she would be despised. Left with no choice, she could only dig a hole and plant it. And in order to make it convenient for her to move around, she even specially used an earth-type mystic art to make a flower pot for her, so that she could carry it away at any time. She was a little excited to see just what kind of plant little Qing was. Student little Qing fell into a deep sleep the moment she entered the flower pot. Squad Captain Nangong's injuries still required rest as well. Zhu Yao had no choice but to temporarily postpone her leveling plan. She would spend a night in this valley, and head to the Divine City tomorrow to level up. Turning around, she glanced at the 2 who were in a meditative state and unconscious state. Zhu Yao could not help but sigh. I guess I'm unlucky. Mary Sue sure was scary. She did not even do anything, and she had already caused them to end up like this. She pulled her master over and reminded him once again. Cherish your life, and stay away from Mary Sue. You. Yao. Yu Yan glanced at the two of them and frowned. I'm afraid this matter isn't that simple. Ah. Zhu Yao was startled for a moment. According to what I know, though the extermination formation is powerful, it doesn't have the ability to attract demonic beasts. What do you mean? Have you ever thought about why those demonic beasts are still relentlessly chasing after the two of them when they have already left the formation? He said with a calm look. Or should I say, facing them alone. Zhu Yao's heart sank, as she fiercely widened her eyes. Master, you're saying, he nodded. Most likely, the nascent divided pearls within the extermination formation have been picked clean. Chapter 360. When Zhu Yao returned to inspect the extermination formation, it was indeed as her master had said. That place was cleaned up very cleanly, and the area within a radius of 50 kilometers was a wasteland. Forget about nascent divided pearls, even the shadows of demonic beasts could not be seen. She even deliberately walked around the area, but did not find a single one. There are other formations mixed into the extermination formation. Yu Yan said with a sunken voice. Most likely, it's used to lure demonic beasts. The formation core is definitely on one of them. Zhu Yao's heart turned cold for a moment. She had thought that Mei Shui was the same as Yiling, a little white lotus whose hormones had exceeded the limit. She never expected that she was still a black-hearted lotus. She probably wanted to make use of Captain Nangong and the others from the beginning. Although there were many ways to obtain nascent divided pearls, it had to be in a dense forest like this. There were many creatures in the forest, and the location was extremely hard to find. Thus, she directly exterminated all living beings. Then, it would be much easier for her to find the nascent divided pearls. However, the moment this formation was activated, other than the nascent divided pearls, there were also demonic beasts in the forest. In order to buy more time to obtain the scattered nascent divided pearls, she needed a cannon fodder to help her lure the demonic beasts away. Hence, she chose Nangong Qing and Zhonggu Lu. She had secretly placed the eye of the beast-attracting array on the two of them. As soon as everyone separated, the magical beasts would naturally rush towards the two of them. All they had to do was return and pick up the nascent divided pearls. How convenient was that? Then what about the two of them now? Zhu Yao's heart sank. Those demonic beasts couldn't be chasing after them, right? No need to worry. Yu Yan shook his head. That beast-guiding formation definitely has a time limit. Currently, it has already lost its effect. With a wave of his hand, dark runes floated out from the bodies of the two people who were meditating. Only then did Zhu Yao heave a sigh of relief. When she thought about it in detail, the more she thought about it, the more she felt that Mei Shui was terrifying. In order to obtain the nascent divided pearls, she actually killed all living beings within a radius of 50 kilometers without batting an eye. She sure was ruthless. Moreover, the annihilation array was only 1,000 miles away from the immortal city. Who knew if some unlucky immortal walked into this forest and was annihilated along with all the other living beings? Not to mention that there were countless demons, beasts, and monsters with spiritual intelligence. As an honest man with an EQ that exceeded his IQ. Zhu Yao felt that she had to stay a little further away from this black heart lotus in the future, otherwise, she might fall into his trap. Zhu Yao immediately told Squad Captain Nangong the truth, and his face instantly darkened. He looked as though he could not wait to immediately return and fight with the other party. Little Qing was so angry that her leaves turned black. This enmity could be considered to have been formed. However, he didn't even need to think to know that the other party must have flown up to the third floor. They didn't delay for too long. Once student Nangong's injuries were healed, they swiftly harvested the nascent divided pearls. He stepped into the elevator. Zhu Yao was woken up by the cold. A cold wind blew past, and it was bone-piercing cold. Startled, she opened her eyes, but all she saw was darkness. Her surroundings were pitch black. He subconsciously grabbed his master, who was beside him, but he grabbed nothing. Master! Zhu Yao was shocked. She groped left and right, and only then did she manage to grab onto a gentle hand. At that moment, she heaved a sigh of relief. Her vision was still dark. We've reached the lower 3 levels. Isn't it a little too dark? Shouldn't the exit be in the immortal city? Why isn't there even the slightest bit of divine energy in the surroundings? Zhu Yao casually cast a fire art, and looked around. Where's Nangong Huang and little Qing? Weren't the two of them walking in front? Why did they disappear? Master, you. The moment she turned around, she was instantly stunned. Yuing, why are you here? She subconsciously flung her hand away. Raising the flame in her hand, she began to search around. Master, Nangong Huang, little Qing, Yu Ying's originally black eyes instantly darkened a little. His eyes darkened, and he slowly clenched his fist. After a while, he retracted his hand that she had mistakenly grabbed and moved the corner of his mouth. The corner of his lips moved, and after a moment, he said. He's not here. There's no one else. Zhu Yao's footsteps paused, and her eyes instantly sharpened. You did it. Bringing her here alone. Yuing was startled. He fiercely widened his eyes, and his face was filled with shock. His face instantly paled, and he shook his head strongly. Big sis Yao, it better not be. Zhu Yao turned her head, and took a deep breath. Not caring about him, she immediately flew up, summoned a fire dragon, and in an instant, drew a line of light in the sky. After taking a closer look, she realized this was a dilapidated immortal city. Broken walls could be seen everywhere, and just as Yuing had said, other than the two of them, there wasn't a single person here. Why was she here? She remembered that she was clearly standing on the stairs to the 3rd level, and when she reached the very top, a ray of white light assaulted her. She simply felt a wave of dizziness, and immediately after, she arrived here. Was this really the lower 3 levels? Where did her master and the rest go? Could it be that the 3 levels had different exits? The winds in the surroundings grew stronger, and each wave was colder than the last. It was as though it could penetrate into the bones, and it was accompanied by various strange whistling sounds, causing one's heart to feel cold. Zhu Yao decided to look around, and first look for the others. She immediately chose a direction and flew over. Yuing immediately followed after her. However, the further she flew, the darker her surroundings became. The winds were even stronger, as though they could blow people away. The defensive barriers Zhu Yao placed down were of no use at all, and she had no choice but to stop. She could not help but feel a little worried. Just what in the world was this place? After flying for half a day, she did not see a single person, and there wasn't even a hint of divine energy in the surroundings. She couldn't be trapped here, right? She took a deep breath, calmed herself down, and released her divine sense with all her might to investigate. She realized that the scenery within a radius of 50 kilometers was the same, a barren land. Forget about deities, there wasn't even a single small animal or plant. There wasn't any divine energy in the air, nor was there any spiritual energy. Other than the whistling winds, there was nothing else. Wait a minute. She swept her divine sense several tens of kilometers in front of her. What was that mountain-like tall thing? Why was there a familiar aura? Zhu Yao's heart stirred, and she immediately flew in that direction. When she got closer, she realized it was actually a large piece of bone. She did not know what demonic beast it belonged to either. The bone was extremely huge, and it was at least 5 to 6 stories tall. The strange thing was, it was actually completely red in color, and it was glowing like a gemstone. And they were all chest bones. A portion of them were buried underground, and only the thorn-like bones were exposed, reaching towards the sky. What's this? She had never seen red bones before. Ying took a few steps forward as well. He lowered his head and looked at the strange piece of bone in front of him. Zhu Yao stared at it for a long while, yet she was unable to see anything strange about it. Though, the cold wind in the air was growing stronger. Forget it, let's find Master first. Let's go. She called out. Just as she was about to cast an art and fly up, something tightened beside her, and she was once again pulled back. When she turned to look, Ying was currently tightly grabbing onto the corner of her robe. Zhu Yao frowned. Let go. Ying did not reply. He simply lowered his head, and tightly pulled onto the corner of her robe, just like how he did in the past. Zhu Yao was instantly enraged. After struggling a few times, she was unable to break free. She immediately cast an art, and with a wave of her hand, she sliced off the corner of her robe. Just what are you trying to do? He still did not reply. The hand that was holding onto the corner of her robe trembled for a moment. He took a step forward, as though he still wanted to pull her. This action once again made Zhu Yao recall what he did in the past. She immediately swatted his hand away, and just as she was about to fly up with the wind, a soft call that could not be heard sounded from behind her. Ag! Zhu Yao's feet paused, as though her heart had been smashed. She fiercely turned her head around. Ying, who was still a head taller than her earlier, was actually beginning to slowly shrink. In just a few moments, he had already shrunk to the size of her waist. The clothes on his body had become extremely tattered as well, and the flesh on his face had sunk in piece by piece. It was as though all the water in his body had been sucked dry in an instant, until only a bony skeleton was left. This way, Xiao Bai. The skinny child staggered forward. Spreading out his withered twig-like little hands, he tightly hugged onto her waist. His hoarse voice, which could barely be heard clearly, sounded. Egg. Don't be afraid. I will protect you. Don't be afraid. Zhu Yao stiffened. Just what in the world was going on? Ying. Stop messing around. She immediately pulled down his hands. Just what in the world is going on? Why did you become like this? However, he turned a deaf ear to her words. Suddenly, he slashed open his wrist, and the surrounding wind instantly turned wild, blowing towards them like sharp blades. Ying, however, forcefully sprinkled his blood into the air, and angrily shouted out. Go away, you're not allowed to touch her. This was the same scene as back in the Nether Abyss. He Xiao Bai. Ying. What happened to you? Zhu Yao's mind instantly turned into mush. She turned to look at those red bones. Could it be because of these bones? They could bewitch people's hearts. Were all of these illusions? However, Ying's cultivation was clearly higher than hers. Why was she fine, but he became like this? Zhu Yao hurriedly cast a few barrier-breaking arts, but they were completely ineffective. Ying continued to sprinkle his own blood, and continued to slash open his wrist. You're crazy. If he continued to slash open his wrist like this, his blood would definitely dry up. What was blowing in the surroundings was just dark wind, not devilish energy. Zhu Yao grabbed onto his hand, stopping him from torturing himself. She turned to look at those red bones. immediately carried Ying, and flew away with her fastest speed. However, Ying did not seem to have regained his rationality in the slightest. Instead, he raised his head and looked straight at her. Reaching out his hands, he hugged onto her neck, and using his pair of withered little hands, he patted on her back. Egg, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. I will protect you, second elder brother will protect you. Zhu Yao instantly felt as though her heart was being pierced, and a bone-piercing pain surged up. It was a pain that even reached her heart, and she could not help but blurt out. Second elder brother. When her words fell, in an instant, the surrounding scenery began to distort, as though it was being stirred by something. The dusky sky disappeared, and the boundless wilderness in the surroundings disappeared without a trace as well. What replaced it was a vast expanse of greenery. The sky was covered by gigantic leaves, and what remained were scattered specks of light. Like the starry sky, they shone upon her body with a warm feeling. Parasol tree. Little sister, this is for you. Suddenly, Xiao Bai's enlarged face appeared in front of her. He no longer had the appearance of a child earlier, and had turned into his original appearance of a femme fatale. He was currently stuffing a bag of things into her hands. She subconsciously opened it to take a look. It was golden sunflower seeds. Chapter 361. What's wrong? You don't like it? Seeing that she didn't move, Xiao Bai smiled even more gently and reached out to touch her head. It's okay, second brother has prepared something else. Saying that, he took out bags of snacks from his side and stuffed them into her hands. Zhu Yao was a little dumbfounded, as she looked at the various familiar bags in her hands. Second brother. Just what was going on? Hurry up and eat while your Shisuan hasn't noticed. Xiao Bai smoothed her hair and said softly, if he sees it, we'll have to, what now? Before he could finish speaking, a figure dressed in snow-white clothes appeared not far away from him. Master. As expected, he was also here. This place is very strange. Before she could finish, the person in front of her frowned and walked over with a cold expression. He turned to the stone beside him and began to lecture. How many times have I told you? You've already achieved grain liberation. Eating more mortal food is not beneficial to your cultivation. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Master, I'm here. Releasing that rock. The person in front of him paused for a moment, then immediately turned around with a normal expression. Facing a tree at the side, he continued to speak in a righteous tone. I told you yesterday, what did you promise me? Does it still count? Zhu Yao sighed. She had no choice but to grab onto the person in front of her and turn around. I'm here. This face blindness that did not differentiate between races could only be a single person. Teacher. He was the far ancient high god. But hadn't he already, what? You can't even recognize your master. His brows furrowed, and he let out a long sigh. You. Yao, though you're a phoenix, you cannot slack off in your cultivation. What did you call me? Zhu Yao was startled. She had never told her master her name before. The person who called her Yu Yao could only be her master. What was going on? He looked at her strangely. Zhu Yao immediately took a step forward, and grabbed onto his hand. Who are you? Before the person in front of him could even reply, Xiao Bai next to him took a step forward, bowed towards him, and courteously said. Sovereign Yu Yan, please forgive me. I brought these snacks with me. It has nothing to do with her. You know I only have one sister, Xiao Qi. Naturally, I value her more. Please don't blame her. Sovereign Yu Yan. Master. He was really her master. But, forget it. Only then did Yu Yan's expression ease a little. Lowering his head to look at Zhu Yao, he habitually stroked her head, a familiar warmth surfaced in his eyes. He said softly, "Don't do it lightly. Tomorrow." He turned his face away uncomfortably. After a while, he said, "Go up the mountain earlier." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure flickered. "Master, wait." Zhu Yao was unable to react in time. He had already disappeared. His heart became even more chaotic. Lunar Shadow Xiao Bai. Master. Master. What was going on? What? Are you afraid that he will be angry? Xiao Bai smiled and gave her a reassuring look. Don't worry, you're going to get married soon. Why would he blame you? Marriage. What kind of godly development was this? Yeah, isn't it set for next month? Xiao Bai's smile became even more gentle. Just as he was about to explain in detail, he suddenly sensed something. He turned his head and his face darkened. Stop! Behind the rock, a little red figure who was about to leave instantly stiffened. He stopped in his tracks and turned around with a pitiful little face. Second brother, seventh elder sister. Little eighth. Wasn't he supposed to be with the wood spirit? Why was he here, and in the form of a child too? Xiao Bai shook his head and reached out a hand. Take it out. Second brother. Little Eight's voice sounded even more wronged. Amen. Only then did he pout his lips and took out a bag of melon seeds from behind him. However, he tightly held on to the bag. I'll give it to you, I'll give it to you. I'll give it all to you. I knew it. Second brother only loves the ugliest seventh elder sister, and doesn't love little eighth at all. Little eighth's life is so bitter. Then why don't you let go? Nonsense. Xiao Bai heavily knocked on his little head, however, he still heartlessly took away the bag of snacks in his hands and placed it back into Zhu Yao's hands. Seventh, elder sister. Little Eighth hurriedly shifted his target towards Zhu Yao. He pointed at the other bag she placed on the rock and said, You already have so many, just give little Eighth one. Though you're ugly, I still won't despise your melon seeds. So I still have to thank you for not despising me, right? Seventh elder sister. Seeing that she was not replying, little Eighth could only pull her hand and shake it, beginning to act coquettishly. Zhu Yao felt goosebumps all over her body. This glutton, for a bag of melon seeds, he had really thrown away his integrity. Zhu Yao immediately stuffed the bag into his little hands. For you. Thank you, seventh elder sister. He cheered out. Carrying the bag, he turned around and ran far away. He even intentionally ran in the opposite direction of where he came from, as though he was afraid that she would go back on her words. You'll spoil him like this. Xiao Bai sighed. Zhu Yao shook her head. Little Eighth is still young. But he's a phoenix, not a phoenix. Xiao Bai solemnly said. The men of my phoenix clan should have long become sensible at his age. How can there be anyone like him, who's still so gluttonous? In the future, how is he going to hold his own? Zhu Yao's heart sank. For some reason, she recalled the scene when little Eighth was trapped in the dimensional space back then. The pool was filled with fresh blood, and the mountain walls were dyed red. She could not help but feel a pain in her heart. Taking a deep breath, she shook off this strange emotion. Turning her head, she glanced at Xiao Bai, who had a heavy expression. Pointing to the other bags on the rock, she said, Aren't you the same to me? These snacks were clearly sent by him, right? You're different. Xiao Bai's expression instantly turned so soft that it looked as though water was about to drip out. He looked straight into her eyes, and her figure was reflected in his eyes, as though she was the only person left in this world. Pulling her hand, he placed it on the side of his face. Revealing a smile, the world instantly lost its color. Because you're my little sister, my only, most important little sister. Dong! An ancient and distant bell rang, instantly resounding throughout the entire parasol tree. Zhu Yao was startled. Wasn't this bell? It's the bell of Ancient Hill Sect. Xiao Bai suddenly said. Ancient Hill Sect. But how was that possible? How did the world of the god race come together with Ancient Hill Sect? Little sister, let's go take a look. Xiao Bai's expression however remained the same. Something must have happened at Yu Yao's place. What? Little radish. Before she could even react, Xiao Bai had already brought her up into the sky, until they flew out of the gigantic parasol tree leaf above their heads. In the air in front of them, a few extremely familiar floating mountains suddenly appeared. The main mountain in the middle was the largest, and the other mountains surrounded the main mountain. Only a single mountain was floating high above the other mountains. That was Jade Forest Mountain. This really was Ancient Hill Sect. But when did Ancient Hill Sect and the Phoenix Clan's divine parasol tree live next to each other? Master. The moment they landed, a red-clothed female practitioner welcomed them, and she was currently looking at her with a pleasantly surprised expression. You're here. Little radish. It really was her. How was this possible? Was it a hallucination? Zhu Yao pinched her face, and rubbed it up and down. It was hot. Does it hurt? Yes. Master. Little Radish's expression darkened. After enduring for a long while, she pulled down her hand. Why don't I try pinching Master? Don't force me to betray my master. She's a real person. Xiao Bai faked a cough. Yu Yao, what happened? Sovereign Xiao Bai. Only then did Little Radish let go of Zhu Yao's hand, and bowed towards Xiao Bai. With a frown, she said. It's Mu Meiyan. She once again barged into the sect's great mountain barrier formation. Mu Meiyan. Zhu Yao was stunned. Isn't she dead? She colluded with the devil race, so how could she die so easily? Little Radish looked at her strangely, and said with a concerned expression. Master, what's wrong? Let's take a look at the front first. Xiao Bai reminded. Only then did Zhu Yao arrive in front of the hall of the main mountain with a stomach full of questions. As expected, a few people were currently fighting in the sky, and the person who was hidden within a mass of devilish aura, with only a single face revealed, was shockingly the already dead Mu Meiyan. And next to her were a few familiar figures. After taking a closer look, they were actually Xiao Yi, Qing Qingdiao, Wu Hua, All of the bugs were actually gathered. Was this a National Day boss discount? There must be something wrong with the way she walked into the market. Little Radish. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched, as she nudged Yu Yao next to her. Why don't you try pinching me for real? I want to see if I'm dreaming. Master. Little Radish looked at her a few times from head to toe, as though she had suddenly recalled something. With a look of realization, she said. Oh. I understand now. Master, this is what you meant by premarital phobia, right? Don't worry, though Mu Meiyan colluded with the devil race, you're a phoenix of the god race. Furthermore, Sovereign Xiao Bai is here, nothing will happen. Premarital. This was already the second time she heard of this term. What premarital? It can't be, Master. Yu Yao was startled, as she looked at her with an accusatory expression. There's not much time left. It's already too late for you to regret now. What nonsense. Just who's getting married to whose? Naturally, it's you and Grandmasters. Haven't the two of you been engaged for a few years already? Yu Yao had a matter-of-fact look. Looking around, she carefully moved over and whispered. Grandmaster has already embroidered a wedding dress for you for a few months. I secretly took a look at it, it's really beautiful. Ah. Master, don't worry, don't worry. Master, I will definitely not tell anyone that you're not good at needlework, and force Grandmaster to embroider a wedding dress for you. When did she force anyone? Don't randomly accuse me of a crime. But, marrying Master. What's with this little bit of anticipation? How much longer is it? A month. So long, No wait, she was here to investigate. Just what in the world was going on? She mustn't be confused by these illusions. Calm down, calm down. Little sister. Xiao Bai tightened his grip on Zhu Yao's hand, and instructed with a sunken voice. Wait for second brother here, don't run around. As he said that, his figure flashed, turning into a gigantic red phoenix, and flew towards the battlefield ahead. In an instant, monstrous karmic flames were ignited. Chapter 362. The final result of the battle in the sky was naturally Xiao Bai's side's complete victory. All of the villains' bugs were captured and locked in the underground prison. From that day onwards, time seemed to have passed especially quickly. Xiao Bai brought her to every corner of the world with the excuse of sending her a wedding invitation, and he even visited the dragon and Qilin races. She also saw many old friends, and everyone she knew ever since she transmigrated. Even though they clearly lived in different worlds, it was as though they were gathered here in an instant. Furthermore, the three realms coexisted peacefully, and other than the occasional disturbance from the devil race, it was rather peaceful. Everything in the world had become perfect, as though there were no more bugs that could not be fixed, and she no longer had to live and die. Her master, Little Radish, the entire ancient hill, Little Six, Little Eight, all of the phoenixes, and even Little Tyrant, Yi Qingcang, Dandelion, Little Qian, and Mushroom had all appeared in her life with their best appearances. And she did not have to worry about anything, as long as she calmly waited to marry the person she loved. Everything was perfect, so perfect that it was as though the past had never happened. But, it was just too perfect. Let's go, little sister. Xiao Bai reached out his hand towards her. The dual practitioner ceremony is about to begin. His honor is waiting for you. Second brother will bring you to the wedding hall. His smile was exceptionally brilliant, and it was as though his entire body was filled with sunlight, causing people to feel warm upon seeing him. It was as though she could hold the entire world in her hands as long as she reached out her hand. Zhu Yao, however, was stunned as she stared at his slender fingers. What's wrong, are you afraid? Xiao Bai took a step forward and immediately held on to her hand. Don't be afraid. If he dares to bully you, feel free to tell second brother. Second brother will always stand by your side and protect you. His words were sincere. Though it carried a hint of teasing, every single word he said was serious. It was as though she could see the scene of second brother who came to fetch her back then outside the great Peng's nest, laughing and crying as he said, "Little sister, I will bring you home." Xiao Bai pulled her, and just as he was about to walk out, Zhu Yao did not move at all. Little sister. She raised her head and stared intently at Xiao Bai's familiar face. A hint of undetectable panic flashed past his eyes. Only then did she slowly retract her hand. Little sister, what's wrong? Xiao Bai turned around and looked at her with a smile, but his eyes were slightly flustered. Zhu Yao took a deep breath. Xiao Bai. Thank you. You will always be my second brother. He froze. However, he immediately returned to normal. What nonsense are you talking about? Of course I'm your second brother. Today is your wedding day, and if we don't go now, we'll miss the auspicious hour." Saying this, he stretched out his hand again to take her hand. However, Zhuyao once again dodged it. "Second brother." Zhuyao raised her head and looked into his eyes. "Actually, I've always had something I wanted to tell you." She paused for a moment, and then said with emphasis on every single word. "Second brother, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not a good sister. I'm sorry. I wasn't able to save you. I'm sorry. I wasn't able to find a better way for the god race. I'm sorry. I was the one who turned you into a demon. Back then, when I opened the Heaven Crossing gate, I had only wanted to save all of you. However, the result of crossing worlds didn't seem to be so good. I saw little 8. He was not doing well. The others don't seem to be doing well either. Little sister." His smile completely froze on his face. He finally held on to her hand, but it was faintly trembling. What nonsense are you spouting? I don't know if forcefully sending all of you into the 3,000 worlds back then was the right or wrong thing to do." Zhuyao took a deep breath, suppressing the fatigue in the depths of her heart. "But, back then, I already had no other choice. If all of you had continued to stay in that collapsing world, most likely, you wouldn't even have the chance to reincarnate. This was simply too unfair to all of you who had been suppressing the devil race. So, even if I was wrong, I don't regret it. But, the only person I feel guilty towards is you." A hint of pain surfaced in the depths of his heart. "Sometimes, I will think, if I had the time back then to explain everything clearly to you, would things have been different? That way, he wouldn't have turned into a demon. This way, he won't become a demon. Maybe, he'll be like little 8, and I'll see him again in another world." "He won't," he solemnly replied. Zhuyao sighed. "That's right, he won't. With his personality, most likely, he won't just watch as I send myself to my death." "Little sister." He took a step forward and tightly held on to her hand. His face was filled with panic. "Aren't we doing well right now? Isn't this good? Isn't it good to continue like this?" "All right." She nodded heavily. She looked at him for a moment, and only after a long while did she say, "But it's too good. It's so good." It felt so unreal. His face instantly paled. Zhuyao had initially thought that this place was merely an illusion. However, even though she had used barrier-breaking arts many times, they were completely ineffective. Later on, she thought that this was some sort of illusory art. However, clearly, every single person here, no matter if it was their personality or their actions, were exactly the same as in reality. In the end, she thought that this was her own heart demon. However, the so-called heart demon would only display all the beautiful things in her heart, and then deliver a fatal blow. However, she had been here for so long, yet, she did not sense even the slightest bit of ill intent. Instead, it was so beautiful that it made one sink into it, as though there were countless ways to make her stay here. More importantly, she understood very well what her heart demon was. It was far more than what she could see right now. Not to mention the heart demon barrier that Realm Spirit had given her back then. So, the illogic of all of this could only be, this place is indeed very good. Zhuyao pulled on to the person in front of her. "Unfortunately, all of this isn't real. I'm no longer the little 7th of the Phoenix clan back then, and you are no longer my second elder brother Xiao Bai either. The past is already in the past, and it can't be returned no matter what. Don't you think so?" Yuing. He was dumbfounded. The light in his eyes instantly extinguished, turning into a blur. Something was slowly collapsing, and tears flowed out just like that, landing on her hand, causing her heart to burn with pain. Big sis. Yow. Everything that happened here was not her heart demon, but Yu Ying's. The surrounding scenery instantly began to distort and change, and ancient hill sect disappeared. The parasol trees began to collapse, as though they had returned to the day when the world of the god race was destroyed. The world was in a state of chaos, and the sorrowful cries of the three god races could be heard everywhere. One after another, gigantic bodies fell from the sky. Not even a moment later, the ground turned into a barren wasteland. Corpses were piled up into mountains, and she once again saw those red bones. Only then did she realize that those were the corpses of the Phoenix clan. Yu Ying. You're Yu Ying. Zhu Yao looked at the person in front of her who had already turned back into Yu Ying's appearance. You're not Xiao Bai, and I'm not Little Seventh either. Don't be trapped by the memories of your past life. Yu Ying raised his head, his face was still overflowing with tears. Yet, he suddenly laughed out. It was filled with a desolate feeling. Yu Ying. If I'm Yu Ying, will Big Sis Yao forgive me? Even if I already know my wrongs, and will no longer anger Big Sis, will you still believe me? Then I don't want to be Yu Ying. He strongly shook his head, as though he had fallen into some sort of madness. I don't want to be abandoned. I'm Xiao Bai. I'll just be Big Sis Yao's second brother, isn't that good? Zhu Yao was stunned. So this was his heart demon. Because of her, he even wanted to erase his own existence. Big Sis Yao. He anxiously tugged onto her sleeves. Look at me, I'm not Yu Ying anymore. I'm Xiao Bai. Yu Ying angered you, and Yu Ying did many bad things. But Xiao Bai won't. In the future, he will never anger you again. Don't ignore me, alright? Yu Ying, I'm really changing now. His hands were trembling, as though he was holding on to his last bit of hope. I didn't kill Wang Shuji. I'm beginning to learn to treat the people around you well, and I'm even protecting Sesame when crossing worlds. In the future, I'll learn to be a good person. I won't do anything that Big Sis Yao doesn't want me to do. I won't even be Yu Ying anymore, alright? In the future, I'll just be Xiao Bai, alright? Zhu Yao's heart ached, and she let out a long sigh. She had no choice but to break his heart demon. But in the end, you're Yu Ying, not Xiao Bai. The ray of light at the bottom of his eyes, finally, completely extinguished. When she once again opened her eyes, she saw a familiar white figure, carrying an anxious expression. Yu Yao. Master. Zhu Yao was a little dumbfounded. What happened to me? The light of ascension contains a heart demon tribulation. It has already been a month since you fell into the heart demon. Yu Yan explained. A month. Zhu Yao was startled. Recalling the matter regarding the heart demon, she fiercely turned her head. Where's Yu Ying? Yu Yan looked towards a place not far away from her right. As expected, he saw Yu Ying, who had already opened his eyes. However, he was not moving at all, and was looking upwards with lifeless eyes, as though he was a shell that had lost its soul. Zhu Yao frowned. After hesitating for a moment, she could not help but walk over and sit down next to him. Although she did not know why she fell into his heart demon, there were some things that she shouldn't drag on any longer. Yu Ying. He did not react, and still maintained the same posture. I can't lie to myself, and I can't lie to you. I really can't forgive you. Zhu Yao sighed heavily. I'm really angry about the things you've done. I wish I could give you 2 slaps, and never see you again. The hands by his side slowly clenched. But now that I've calmly thought about it, how can I not feel the slightest bit of responsibility for the things you've done? She looked at his face seriously. I treat you like a younger brother, and I've tried my best to teach you everything, but you can't learn it. Moreover, the more I walk, the more I go astray. While I feel despair for you, I'm also disappointed in myself. If a child can't be taught well, it's not only because the child is born stupid, but also because there's a problem with the teaching method. Yuan was stunned. Finally, he reacted and slowly turned his head around. Zhu Yao took the opportunity to stroke his head, and continued. But Yuan, a mistake is a mistake. Admit that I didn't teach well. But what you did is indeed unforgivable. Even now, I still can't forgive you. Big Sister is also a human, and Big Sister's heart is made of flesh. I can't take your blows again and again. When I went from disappointment to despair, I no longer had the courage to continue teaching you. So, Yuan, why don't you do it for me instead? Zhu Yao retracted her hand, and said with a stern look. You said that you already know your wrongs. Have you repented? You don't want to be the old Yuan anymore. I don't have the courage to believe you now, so why don't you show me? Let me see just how good you've become. From today onwards, I will no longer hide from you, and I will no longer ignore your existence. But you're no longer my little brother either. Let's start from the very beginning, as strangers. Let me see just how good you've become. The courage to trust, you give it to me. Big Sis. Yao. His eyes began to lose focus, and mist began to gather. Zhu Yao took a deep breath, and reached out her hand. Hello, it's our first time meeting. I'm Zhu Yao. His tears instantly gushed out like a tidal wave. He suddenly sat up, and pounced into her embrace, bawling his eyes out, as though he was venting out all the grievances, joy, uneasiness, and guilt in his heart. He cried until he couldn't even catch his breath, yet, his mouth was repeatedly repeating a single word. Chapter 363. Zhu Yao glanced at the dark surroundings. The place they were at was very desolate, and cold winds blew past. Her ears were filled with various strange and terrifying cries, sometimes sharp, and sometimes gloomy. It made her scalp go numb. She almost thought she was in the underworld again. The three of them were surrounded by a green barrier. Occasionally, blurry black shadows would crash into them, letting out even more shrill cries. Master, is this the third floor? Wasn't the change of scenery a little too quick? No. Yu Yan shook his head, his expression sank. Next floor. What? Zhu Yao was stunned for a moment. Didn't we just leave the second floor? How did they get to the next floor? There were a total of 8 floors between them. I don't know the reason either. He frowned. He took out the jade tablet he received back at Amway Hall, and the words, next floor, were indeed written on it. Back then, when we were skipping floors, we fell into the heart demon tribulation together. Your master woke up before you. Most likely, people who pass through the heart demon tribulation will be randomly sent to other floors. So it was possible to skip levels. Zhu Yao looked around, only to see other deities in the surroundings. Some were lying on the ground unmoving, while others had already woken up, but were looking at the black shadows outside with hesitation and anxiety. However, without exception, every single one of them was surrounded by a layer of translucent barrier. The colors were all different, with red, green, and yellow. Above their heads, there was still a line of words written, Unknown Deity, Level 10. Level 10. The hell. They were all advanced level players. Master, they. Just as Zhu Yao was about to speak, she raised her head and was stunned. A line of words floated above her master's head as well. Yu Yen, level 10. Why can I see it now? Was it because the map's level was too low? She hurriedly turned to look at Ying. There were words above his head as well. Ying, level. What's with those two question marks? Dongfang girlie. You're awake. A surprised voice rang. Nangong Qing ran over, and beside him was Zhonggu Lu, who had already returned to his muscular form. Hi, little Huang, little Teal. Zhu Yao waved her hand and greeted. Little. The corner of Nangong Cheng's lips twitched, and he sighed as though he had accepted his fate. Forget it, little Huang it is. Sister Dongfang, your inner demon tribulation has been going on for too long. It's already been a month. We're so worried. Hee hee. You've worked hard. Zhu Yao smiled. Turning his head to look at Ying, who was sitting obediently at the side, he did not explain much. Right, where did you guys go? Nangong Cheng's expression turned serious. He took a few steps forward and gestured for them to sit down. Zhang Xian said earnestly. I just went to ask around. This is indeed the upper level. However, it is different from the legendary upper echelons. What's the difference? Zhu Yao asked. Nangong Cheng and his good friend Gu Lu looked at each other, their expressions becoming even more solemn. After a while, he said. Everyone thinks that the Lightning Divine Tower is split into 10 floors. But what I just heard was different. There are no 10 levels in the upper levels. There aren't 10 levels. What do you mean? Everyone who enters the upper 10 floors can no longer return to the lower floors, nor can they leave the tower. Do you know this? Zhu Yao nodded. What's the situation like on the 10th floor? The people of the lower class had no way of knowing. Everyone thought that the upper level was the same as the lower level, divided into 10 levels. Actually, there's only a single level in the entire upper level. Zhu Yao and her master were both startled. After a while, Yu Yen said. You're saying, the realm of gods is above this floor. That's right. Nangong Qing nodded, and pointed at the distant horizon. Do you guys see that light? Looking at the horizon carefully, there was indeed a hint of white flashing light. From top to bottom, it connected straight to the horizon, as though it had split the sky into two. Due to the distance, they could only see a thin line. That's the passage to the realm of gods. He continued. That place is about several hundred kilometers away from here. As long as we can reach there, we will be able to reach the realm of gods. Several hundred kilometers. Zhu Yao's heart stirred. This was the rhythm of directly teleporting them to the top of the tower. That's not that far either. If they were to fly with the wind, they wouldn't even need an hour, right? It's not far. Nangong Qing fiercely widened his eyes, his expression was strange. As though he had recalled something, he turned to look at Yu Yen. You didn't tell her. Yu Yen shook his head. I didn't make it in time. What do you mean? Why was he playing dumb? Dongfang girlie, have you never sensed the divine energy in your own body? Sensing the divine energy. The hell? Zhu Yao carefully sensed, and her entire body felt terrible. Her cultivation and divine energy were both present, but she couldn't use them. Nangong Qing had a bitter look. From here to the place of the light of guidance, no mystic arts can be used. So, we can only walk there. Was this the rhythm of returning to the Stone Age? This floor was actually a forbidden zone for divine arts. Wait a minute. If divine arts can't be used, then where did this barrier come from? She pointed at the green, translucent barrier above her head and the people around her. Nascent divided pearls. Yu Yen continued. After we came up, the nascent divided pearls we collected earlier automatically opened up the barrier. Every single nascent divided pearl can last for about half a day. If the barrier is destroyed. Before he could finish his sentence, a scream came from the side. Not far away, a level 10 immortal was rolling on the ground, covered in blood. Black shadows were everywhere, constantly colliding with his body. Every black shadow that passed by tore off a piece of flesh from his body. Although he resisted with all his might, he still couldn't block the black shadows that filled the sky. The scene was so bloody that it was like the most horrifying zombie movie. A living immortal was dismembered right in front of them. Zhu Yao could not help but take a step forward, only to be stopped by Yu Yan. It's too late. Yu Yan took the opportunity to pull her over, covered her ears with his hands, and pulled her into his embrace. As expected, the voice on the other side had already disappeared in an instant. She felt a little suffocated. Sigh. This is already the third one. Nangong Cheng let out a long sigh. Once the barrier disappears, we will be attacked by the surrounding black shadows. I wonder what these shadows are. Only this barrier can stop it. How many nascent divided pearls do you have? Yu Yan asked. Back when he went to the lower third floor, in case he needed this quest item again. They purposely gathered more. About 10 of them. Nangong Cheng said. Back then, when everyone fell into their heart demons, we used up more than half of them. The remaining ones can still last for about 5 days, but it will take 10 days to reach the light of guidance from here. In other words, if we sit here, we will be attacked by those black shadows. But if we head out, we won't be able to reach our destination in 5 days, and there will still be danger. Amen. Nangong Cheng nodded with a worried look. I don't know what to do either. That's why I want to discuss this with you guys. Zhu Yao was silent for a moment. This time, she was really in a dilemma. She turned to look at the person who had been silent the entire time. Ying, what do you think? Ying was startled. As though he never expected that Zhu Yao would ask for his opinion. He instantly froze. Looking at the surrounding gazes that were looking at him, he nervously lowered his head. A moment later, he said. If we head out, there will be a chance of survival. And I think, there must be a reason for the appearance of these black shadows. Once we figure it out, we might be fine. I think so too. Nangong Cheng happily slapped his thigh. Rather than waiting for death here, why don't we head out and take a gamble? What do you guys think? I have no objections. Zhonggu Lu said indifferently. Yu Yan nodded in agreement as well. Then let's go. In order to conserve nascent divided pearls, it's best if we move together. Zhu Yao immediately stood up. She turned to look at the person who was still sitting on the ground. Let's go, Ying. He was startled for a moment, and then he nodded heavily. He immediately followed after her. His pair of eyes, which had always been deep, were now glowing with a different light. Ever since he started talking, Zhu Yao felt that Ying had slowly become different. The eyes he used to look at people were faintly emitting a sense of reality, and were no longer as bottomless as before, where even she was unable to guess what he was thinking. Zhu Yao felt that the reason why he had such a deep obsession with her was because of the influence of Xiao Bai's memories from his past life. Back then, when she picked him up, he should have faintly had some fragmented memories, which was why he had been sticking to her without letting go. As for turning into a devil later on, he had most likely completely recalled everything. Yet, what he remembered the most was when she forcefully sent him into the world-crossing door back then. That was why he cared so much about her abandoning him, right? And it was precisely because of this that no matter how much logic she spoke to him in the past, no matter how much she spoke to him, he actually wouldn't listen. Because he, who had turned into a devil due to his obsession, had always been living in the memories of his past life. Zhu Yao felt that the current Yuing was a good start. At the very least, he was willing to reveal his true self, and was willing to sincerely listen to her reasoning. He learned to be a good child, and no longer ignored everything around him. Now that he was able to walk out, Zhu Yao felt that as long as he interacted more with other people, everything would get better. After all, no matter if he was autistic or stubborn, the root of it all was because he lacked communication. However, to Yuing, communication seemed to be a little difficult. "I say, Daoist Shimin," Nangong Ching said with a passionate look. "Seeing how you haven't spoken the entire time, I didn't expect that your thoughts are more or less the same as mine. The more I look at you, the more I feel close to you." "Oh right, so your real name is Yuing." Yuing was expressionless. "You guys are really too much. Even your names are fake. The three of you are from Lightning Divine Hall, right? Why is it that both of them use you as their Dao name, but you're called Yuing?" Dongfang Girly calls Daoist Baichen her master. "Looking at your age, you can't be Daoist Baichen's grand disciple, right?" Daoist you, why are you walking so quickly? In any case, we don't have much to do right now. Why don't you chat with me about Dongfang Girly?" "Oh right. Are you married? Do you have a partner? It must be hard to mingle around the two of them every day, right?" "I understand you. But you don't have to be sad either. There might be many goddesses waiting for us in the god realm. We can't give up. Don't you think so? I wonder what Daoist you likes. Let me tell you a secret. Although my original body is of the beast race, I like those with wings. I'm telling you. Every single female beast with wings." Yu Ying's footsteps suddenly paused, as though he was really annoyed by the questions. He coldly looked over, and killing intent instantly filled the surroundings. Scram! Nangong Ching was dumbfounded. What's wrong with him? Zhu Yao had no choice but to step out and smooth things over. She pushed the person who had gone crazy from the questions. "Yuing, speak properly." Yu Ying's killing intent instantly extinguished, and he immediately changed his words. "Shut up. You can't be so fierce. Change your words. How do you want to die? Be a little more polite. Please die. Be a little more tactful. You lowly beast, don't talk to me. My clan's noble status and bloodline isn't something you can reach. If you dare to say another word, I will break 2 of your legs. If you have 4, I will break 4. Do you understand?" Zhu Yao, Yu Yen, Little Qing. Chapter 364. She didn't know if it was because Yu Yin had resolved the knot in his heart, but recently, student Nangong Huang especially liked to stick to Yu Yin. Even though he would always be oppressed by Yu Yin verbally, humiliated with his actions, and even silently beaten up when she wasn't looking, Nangong Huang, however, still approached him without any hesitation. If not for the fact that she knew how monstrous the suppression of the god race's bloodline was, Zhu Yao would have thought that he was trying to abduct Yuing. Although Yu Yin seemed to be getting more and more irritable, his expression became more and more vivid, and more human. Seeing that the two of them were at most bickering verbally, Zhu Yao could not be bothered to interfere either. Because every time she interjected, Nangong Huang would instead look as though he was being punished even more severely. As time passed, she couldn't be bothered to care about it anymore. Instead, it was Nangong classmate's best friend who was dissatisfied. From time to time, he would look at her with resentment and accusation. Classmate Xiaoqing, why are you looking at me? What does this have to do with me?" Flips table. Putting aside the fact that Yuing was the one who interfered, even without him, you two are a flower demon and a demonic beast. You two are of different races, so there is no future for you two, alright? Huh, what's wrong? Have you really decided to forgive him? She felt a warmth in her hand as a slender hand slowly intertwined with hers. Zhu Yao turned to look at her master at the side, and nodded. Amen. Actually, if I think about it carefully, I'm partly responsible for Ewing turning out like this as well. Back then, when I picked him up and brought him back, I didn't know that he was Xiao Bai. Furthermore, with that kind of identity of his, it's inevitable that the celestial Indus sect would find trouble with him. I had thought that by leaving him in Ancient Hill sect I would give him a home. Furthermore, Little Radish's sincere care was the best arrangement for him. I never expected that he would become a devil instead. Life is unpredictable. Yu Yan said with a sunken voice. There are too many mysteries surrounding you, and the things you do are extremely dangerous as well. Back then, if you had insisted on bringing him by your side, he might have died a long time ago. How could he have the chance to become a demon? But, Yu Yao. He reached out to hold her body, stroked her head, and sighed. You can't do everything perfectly. Regarding the things you've done, I'm sure that even if it's your master, you don't want me to follow you, right? Zhu Yao stiffened for a moment. Are you afraid? Yu Yan continued. Aren't you afraid of dying and being reborn again and again? But you're afraid that we'll get hurt. You're worried that if we encounter an accident, we won't be able to be reborn like you, right? Master, your master isn't blaming you. Yu Yan sighed, and hugged her a little tighter. You've already done very well. With the burden of saving the world on your shoulders, who would have the confidence to do better? So, although I've always been angry at you for acting on your own, I've never blamed you. Zhu Yao was silent for a moment, as she tightened her arms and tightly hugged onto the person in front of her. Breathing in his slightly cold aura, she raised her head after a while and said with a slightly trembling voice, So, Master, nothing must happen to you, not even the slightest bit. Otherwise, I don't even know what I will do. Yu Yan lowered his head, pressed his forehead against hers, and gently said. Amen, your master will accompany you forever. Hey! That's enough. Zhonggu Lu rolled his eyes in extreme disdain. Two people who were walking suddenly picked up a person. There are still onlookers here, okay? They're going to fight again. Are you sure you're not going to intervene? He pointed at the two people in front of him. Zhu Yao turned to look, only to see Yu Ying's face had already turned as dark as the bottom of a pot, and he was currently walking forward with a furious look. Student Nangong Huang was currently hugging onto his thigh tightly, and as he dragged him on the ground, he wailed. No! Daoist Yu, why are you so violent? You have to be gentler to me, aw, it hurts. Everyone, the hell, what a dirty line. Just how did he say it? Don't think that just because you're Nangong Huang, you can say dirty lines, hey. Yu Ying is still a child. Yu Ying, come back. Zhu Yao hurriedly waved at him, in case he was led astray. The violent aura on Yu Ying's body instantly dissipated quite a bit. He obediently walked back, and before he left, he did not forget to give Nangong Huang a kick, and even glared at him with an ice-cold gaze. Nangong Qing did not feel any pain, as he was evidently already used to it. Patting off the dirt on his body, he began to pick up his moral integrity that was scattered on the ground. What's wrong with the two of you now? Zhu Yao pulled Yu Ying behind her and asked seriously. Zhu Yao pulled Yu Ying behind her. Yu Ying's expression was still dark, as he desperately glared at Nangong Qing. His expression was filled with, I'll kill you, kill you, kill you. Dongfang girlie, this has nothing to do with me. Nangong Qing said with a bitter look. Daoist Yu was the one who insisted on using the nascent divided pearls to scout the path alone. It's too dangerous here, that's why I stopped him. What? When Zhonggu heard this, he instantly grew anxious as well, and said with a furious look. This is simply ridiculous. We don't have enough nascent divided pearls in the first place, and we've only been walking for 2 days. How can we have any extra to waste? No way. Yu Yan frowned slightly as well. Indeed. They weren't lost right now, so there was no need to waste nascent divided pearls to scout the path. Even if Yuing was annoyed by Nangong Cheng's pestering, it was a little overboard for him to make such a request. In an instant, everyone's eyes faintly carried hints of criticism. Yuing did not refute. He lowered his head, and his expression was unclear. However, the hands by his side clenched tightly. His aura, which had begun to fluctuate in the past few days, was once again showing signs of returning to a deathly stillness. Zhu Yao's heart sank, and she immediately pulled Yu Ying's hand. Yuing, tell me, just what happened earlier. Before he could reply, Zhonggu angrily said. Didn't Nangong say it earlier? He wanted to snatch. Shut up. Zhu Yao glared at him. I'm asking Yuing, not you. What's a single dog interrupting me for? Why did she feel as though an arrow had struck her knee? Yuing, tell me. What happened earlier? What were you thinking? Zhu Yao continued to ask. Yuing stiffened for a moment. The hand which was holding onto her hand slightly trembled, and only after a while did he slowly raise his head. However, he no longer carried the furious expression earlier. Instead, his eyes softened, and the corner of his lips curled downwards. Even his tone had changed. Big sis, he lightly said, as though he had suffered a huge grievance. Zhu Yao had never seen him like this before, and for some reason, her heart instantly softened. Speak slowly. This expression of his only lasted for a second, before he immediately reverted back to his previous wooden look. Even his tone had reverted back to that monotonous voice. I realize that I can sense the surrounding shadows, and they don't affect me at all. Also, along the way, these shadows have been decreasing. I feel that in at most 2 days, they will completely disappear. I want to find out just how far we have to go in order to shake off these shadows, which is why I wanted to go out and investigate. You're saying that these terrifying shadows aren't everywhere? Zhonggu was stunned. That's great. This way, we can reach a safe place before our nascent divided pearls are used up. Daoist Yu, why didn't you say so earlier? Nangong Qing eagerly squeezed over. You're actually able to sense these shadows. This time, we have hope. Zhu Yao pulled Yuing behind her, and began to settle scores with him. Earlier, who was the one who said that he was messing around and was being ridiculous? The yellow and green duo stiffened, and their faces were instantly filled with awkwardness. It's my fault. I'm sorry, Daoist Yu. Nangong Qing was magnanimous as he scratched his head with an apologetic look. I'm sorry. Zhonggu hurriedly added. Earlier, I was too anxious, I thought. It's all little Huang's fault. Nangong Qing was shot twice in a row. Why was it all his fault now? Even if they were good friends, they shouldn't shoot like that. Also, who's little Huang? Zhu Yao turned to glance at Yuing. Seeing that his expression was as usual, he had once again reverted to his cold expression from before, with an expression of disdain for talking to a clown. Zhu Yao heaved a sigh of relief. The current Yuing was just like a child, and he was overly sensitive. She was really afraid that because of this, he would lose the courage to communicate with others. However, the fact that these terrifying shadows had a limited range of movement did ignite the confidence of the group. Just as Nangong Qing was about to reconsider their next course of action, he was suddenly interrupted by a sharp scream. That voice was not far away from them, and it was even a female's voice. In this quiet and dark space, it seemed especially horrifying. Zhu Yao faintly had a bad premonition. Since this voice was so sudden, it definitely wasn't anything good. Just as she was about to make a detour, a series of hurried running sounds came from the front. In the next moment, several figures in a sorry state ran over from the front. There were a total of 4 of them, and every single one of them had messy steps, as they rolled and crawled. Looking at their figures, they seemed to be 3 men and 1 woman. Initially, they still had flustered and exhausted looks, but when they saw them, they instantly charged over as though they were injected with stimulants. They stopped outside their barrier, and then desperately knocked on the barrier. "Save me, save me. I beg of you, save me." Only then did Zhu Yao clearly see their appearances. What a coincidence, they were actually the Mary Sue Mei Shui who tricked Nangong Qing and the others in the 2nd floor. This sure was fate. "It's you." Nangong Qing naturally recognized her as well, and angrily charged forward. "You." Mei Shui was stunned for a moment, and only then did she recognize Nangong Qing. In an instant, her face was filled with joy. "Fellow Daoist Nangong, it's you. That's great, those shadows are chasing over. Fellow Daoist Nangong, please open the barrier and save us." Nangong Qing coldly laughed. "We have yet to settle the matter of you scheming against us back then, and you actually dare to come knocking on our door." Mei Shui was startled for a moment. A hint of something flashed past her eyes, but she immediately regained her composure. Her tears flowed out in an instant. This technique didn't even have a buffer. "Fellow Daoist Nangong, do you have some sort of misunderstanding towards me? I can explain it. Did something happen after we separated back then? Back then, after we separated, we were very worried about you as well, and had even returned to look for you. However, we did not discover you. Mei Shui knows that I have let you down, and in these past few days, I have been unable to eat or sleep in peace. Now that we are in trouble, if you don't let us in, we will immediately die here." She was speaking nonsense. Most probably, she still did not know that they already knew of the secret of the extermination formation. Nangong Cheng's face turned green from anger, as he turned to look at the others. Zhu Yao shrugged. "It has nothing to do with me. You can decide on your own." As she said that, she pulled her master and Ying, took a few steps back, and then turned around. Looking as though she did not want to interfere at all, she could not help but say with a suppressed voice. "Ying, I have a question I wish to ask you. P.S. I've created a new V group. Those with at least 3,000 followers are welcome to join. In the future, there will be some free side quests and the like in the group from time to time. Group ID, 143723946. Chapter 365. Daoist friend Nangong, do you really have the heart to watch them die? Mei Shui was still begging with tears in her eyes. She was pretty to begin with, and her crying made her look even more delicate, making people inevitably feel pity for her. But Nangong Qing had suffered a loss before, so no matter how much she cried now, he couldn't feel the slightest bit of pity for her. "Don't think that I don't know what you did to the extermination formation. The fact that we're still alive means that we already know everything. You don't have to put on an act in front of us." Mei Shui's face stiffened. She was embarrassed that the truth had been exposed. Nangong Qing coldly snorted and couldn't be bothered with this despicable person. He called for everyone to continue on their way. The sharp and terrifying cries in the surroundings grew louder and louder, and a sinister wind blew. It was as if something terrifying was rushing over. The faces of Mei Shui and the rest instantly turned pale. She couldn't be bothered anymore as she stood in front of them. Daoist friend Nan Gong, what happened in the past was my fault. That's right. I used you, but that was my own idea, and it had nothing to do with anyone else. You can leave me to die, but please save the three of them. She pointed at the three men beside her. As long as you're willing to let them enter the barrier and wait for the group of black shadows in front to pass, Mei Shui is willing to apologize with her death right now. When her words fell, not only the few men beside her, even Zhu Yao was stunned. This was illogical. Mary Sue actually learned to sacrifice herself to save others. Mei Shui, you can't. So what if we die? One of the green-clothed men retorted. That's right. Number 2 replied. As long as I can be with you, I don't mind dying now. Even if we die, we will die together. Another man immediately expressed his stance. The scene instantly became emotional, but Mei Shui shook her head heavily, and even the tears that had not dried up fell down. The scene was very sad. No. I can't implicate you. It's my fault, let me bear it alone. Fellow Daoist Nan Gong, please save them. Nan Gong Qing hesitated for a moment. He didn't expect that Mei Shui would die for the others. Mei Shui. The three men still wanted to stop her, but Mei Shui suddenly pushed them away. She took out a long sword from somewhere and looked at Nan Gong Qing with a resolute expression. Daoist Nan Gong, please keep your word. As he spoke, he placed the sword on his neck and was about to slit his own throat. Hey, what are you doing? Holy shit, he didn't agree. Nan Gong Qing was taken aback. Instinctively, he reached out to stop her. Zhu Yao's heart sank. Wait a minute, Nan Gong Huang. Unfortunately, he was still a step too late. His hand had already reached out of the barrier, and the barrier opened up. Almost in an instant, the situation reversed. The three people who were pushed away by Mei Shui just now swarmed up to restrain Nan Gong Qing, and Mei Shui's sword, which she had originally intended to slit her own throat, stopped. At this moment, it was already on Nan Gong Qing's neck, and the barrier instantly disappeared. Holy shit! Ha 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 ha. Mei Shui, who was still incomparably weak earlier, had already changed her expression. She was laughing in an extremely unbridled and arrogant manner. I never thought that someone as stupid as you would actually be tricked so easily. Serves you all right to die here. You vicious woman, let me go. Nan Gong Qing was trembling from anger. However, this floor was a forbidden zone for divine arts in the first place, and he was restrained by the three people. He basically couldn't move at all. Let go. It wasn't easy for me to lure you in, how can I let you go so easily? Mei Shui gave him a kick, and then looked at the others. None of you move. Otherwise, I will kill him right now. The sword in her hand moved, and a streak of blood instantly appeared. Nan Gong. Zhonggu Lu was trembling from anger. What's the point of threatening others? If you have the ability, then fight me one-on-one. Mei Shui coldly laughed, and ignored him. Zhu Yao frowned, and took a step forward. Mei Shui. Mei Shui, just what are you trying to do? What am I trying to do? Mei Shui, what else can you do in this upper level? Mei Shui coldly snorted with a disdainful look. She signaled the man beside her with her eyes, and he immediately understood. He began to search Nan Gong Qing's body, and a few moments later, he found the bag that contained the nascent divided pearls. 5 more. Mei Shui then nodded in satisfaction. So her goal in the beginning was to snatch the nascent divided pearls. Her begging earlier was all an act. The 4 of them supported Nan Gong Qing as they retreated to a safe distance. They coldly laughed. Enjoy your final moments then. She suddenly moved her sword away, and then fiercely stabbed towards Nangong Cheng's back, directly penetrating his chest. Pulling out her sword, she sent him flying towards them. Let's go. The few of them turned around and fled forward. Nangong. Zhonggu Lu hurriedly caught the injured Nangong Cheng. However, Mei Shui and the others were already nowhere to be seen. However, that sword was extremely ruthless, and Nangong Cheng's chest was already dyed red. If it was in the past, this bit of injury wouldn't be much. However, divine arts couldn't be used here. Even if he had a divine physique, he wouldn't be able to hold on if he continued to bleed like this. Zhu Yao squatted down and grabbed onto his wrist. As expected, the loss of blood was severe. Dongfang girly. Nangong Cheng wished he could smash his head into a wall and die. It's all my fault. I fell for that bitch's scheme again, and even my nascent divided pearls are. Forget it, there's no point in saying these things now. Zhu Yao was a little frustrated. Earlier, Nangong Cheng's actions were completely subconscious. No one would have thought that Mei Shui had the intention to snatch the nascent divided pearls in the first place. She could only blame herself for being stupid. Mei Shui was a ruthless character in the first place, so how could she come begging to her doorstep like this? Zhu Yao should have realized it long ago. Initially, there were 5 men by Mei Shui's side, and now, there were only 3 left. Just by thinking about it, it was obvious what had happened. A woman who could even make use of her own people, what else couldn't she do? Dongfang girly is right. Now isn't the time to pursue responsibility. Zhonggu Lu was extremely anxious as well. Looking at the unstoppable bleeding on his chest, even his hands were trembling a little. It's best if you think of a way to stop your bleeding. If this continues, it'll be troublesome. There's more than one trouble right now. Yu Yan suddenly said coldly. With a twist of his hand, that life-lightning sword had already appeared in his hands. Raising his head, he looked towards the distance in front of him and solemnly said, "They're here." The moment his words fell, a large wave of sharp and terrifying sounds transmitted into their ears, causing them to unconsciously feel a chill from the depths of their hearts. It was those man-eating shadows. Zhu Yao immediately took out that red, patched weapon as well. Fortunately, this was her life weapon, and could be considered as a part of her body. She did not need to use a divine art to activate it. However, the effects of the sword would be greatly reduced. It could no longer be considered a divine artifact, and was merely a regular weapon. But Nangong, Zhonggu Lu grew even more flustered. Zhu Yao clenched her fists, and then turned to look at the person behind her. Yuing. Can you help him stop the bleeding? Yuing did not hesitate. He simply took a step forward and flung his sleeves at Nangong Cheng, and the bleeding on his chest stopped. This is... Zhonggu Lu was completely dumbfounded. He looked at Yuing as though he had seen a ghost. You... Could it be that your divine arts weren't sealed? There's no time to explain. Those shadows are coming. Zhu Yao turned to look in front of her. She gripped the sword in her hand tightly, and followed beside her master. Zhonggu Lu understood that this was not the time to ask questions. Even Nangong Cheng took a deep breath and struggled to stand up. A moment later, with a ding-dong sound, something fell from the front. It rolled a few rounds on the ground, and then shattered with a few cracks. That was actually a nascent divided pearl that had already been used up. Zhu Yao instantly understood why Mei Shui still had the time to put on an act for so long, even though she was clearly being chased by those shadows earlier. They had most likely placed this nascent divided pearl here a long time ago to block those shadows that were everywhere outside, so as to buy time for them to put on an act. Most likely, they did not realize it earlier as well. They walked into the barrier. This nascent divided pearl could not last for long in the first place, and it had already reached its limit. The instant the nascent divided pearl shattered, the shadows that blotted out the skies and covered the earth wildly pounced towards them. Their sharp and ear-piercing cries were so deafening that they felt pain in their ears. There were dancing shadows everywhere, and occasionally, human faces would appear in the shadows as well. However, every single one of them was more sinister and terrifying than the last. Even when those shadows flew past, they brought along a bone-piercing chill. It was as though they could freeze people to death. Those shadows seemed to have a goal in mind. Some charged towards her master, some charged towards Nangongqing, and some charged towards Zhonggulu. There were even more that charged towards Yuing, except for her. Xu Yao was a little stunned. She looked at the waves of shadows that were charging towards the few people beside her, yet all of them perfectly dodged her. Not a single one actually turned to look at her. Not a single one. What was going on? Was it another cheat given to her by Realm Spirit? But ever since she entered the tower, she did not receive any special treatment. There wasn't any special treatment, and even the world favorability seemed to have lost its effect. Master. She looked at the person next to her strangely. Amen. Yu Yan swung his sword at the few shadows in front of him, and turned to look at her. Before Zhu Yao could explain, another shadow took the opportunity to attack Yu Yan's back. Master, be careful. Zhu Yao immediately slashed with her sword, and that shadow was instantly dispersed. However, the smoke did not disperse, and in the next moment, it began to gather again. Not even a moment later, it once again gathered into a ball, and a human face instantly appeared. It was the face of an elderly man, with a long beard and white hair. He looked extremely amiable, and he looked a little familiar. In an instant, that face turned sinister. With a sharp cry, it pounced towards her. Zhu Yao swung her sword sideways, and once again scattered it. As expected, in less than 7 minutes, that shadow once again returned to its original form. And Zhu Yao seemed to have accidentally pulled its aggro, as this shadow began to change its target and attack her. Zhu Yao was not a physical practitioner, and her sword arts were not strengthened by divine arts, so it could only be considered average. However, it was still more than enough to deal with a single shadow. However, this wasn't a solution. This thing could infinitely reform, and it was impossible to kill them all. She had to find a way. Zhu Yao observed her surroundings for a moment, and was shocked by the person behind her. Yu Ying. He was actually standing in the middle of the layers of shadows in a daze. Without even thinking, Zhu Yao charged over. With a few slashes, she slashed apart a few shadows surrounding him, instantly pulling a huge pile of aggro. In an instant, a large wave of shadows flew towards her uniformly. Ah! She seemed to have gone OT. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.